He said, you can park here until 1 o'clock, just don't go to Costco. Because if you park here after 1, you will get towed. Yes, no ticket, no parking passes needed. Good morning and thank you all for being here. It's a great day for our beloved state of Hawaii. We are going to do wonderful things here and you are going to be witness to the unveiling of one of our highlights, which is our North Star. My name is Benette Misalucha. I'm the Executive Director of the Workforce Development Council. And again, it's such a pleasure to welcome you. Because WDC operates under Sunshine Law, the Office of Information Practice has deemed that this summit, like the summit that we had last December, be treated as a board meeting. So I would now like to call on our WDC Chair, Ken Louie, to call this meeting to order. Ken?
Wow, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here today, especially for our neighbor island guests and members. Today, we are going to be participating in the Workforce Synergy Summit 2, and I noticed we had Cocoa Head Crater up there, and so that thing's very appropriate. Thank you for putting that visual up there. My name is Ken Louie, Chair of the WDC, and allow me to recognize our Vice Chair, Carrie Miyashiro, who is sitting over there. Carrie. So we have a very full agenda, so I'd like to call our meeting together to start at, what time is it today? 8:31, very good. Got some protocol things to get out of the way here. This is a public meeting under the open meeting law, and to start the meeting and to document in the minutes, we will do a roll call of the council members. So Angela, take it away.
So just say here when I call your name, please. Ken Louie.
Here.
Carrie Miyashiro. Amber Akana. Gina Wu Ano Nuevo. Manu Bermudez. Michelle Rego. Scott Collins is excused. Cheryl Cross. Keith DeMello. Senator Donovan De La Cruz is excused. Leah Diaz. Dion Dizon. Rona Fukumoto is excused. Representative Andrew Garrett is excused. Rosella Gardashon. Jared Higashi. Shelly Ihori. Derek Kanahira is excused. Winell Kanashiro. Andy Kawano is excused. Sean Knox. Dan Kochi. Carla Kurokawa is excused. Kehaulani Kukahiko. Robert Letsky is excused. Trang Malone is excused. Benson Medina. Pane Meatoga III is excused. Sean Nakamura is excused. Chris Lumley. David Rodriguez. Jade Rojas Letisi. Tui Scanlon. Della Taraoka. Thomas Chalk. Leslie Wilkins. Lorna Wu. Thank you.
Okay, per Workforce Development Bylaws, Article 5, Section 7, and under the Hawaii Revised Statutes 92-15 and HRS 202-1, until such time the council has 41 members, 16 council members shall constitute quorum to do business, and the concurrence of at least 16 council members shall be necessary to make any action of the council valid. Since we have, how many members? Need a count. Okay, give you a second. While Angela does the tally. Okay, since we have 21 council members present today, we'll confirm we have quorum. And for the rest of the agenda, I'll turn it back over to Benette, our Executive Director.
Thank you, Ken. You know, we purposely chose this room, Louie Room, because of you. No, I'm kidding. There's a story behind it. Okay, maybe during the break we'll hear it. But Cheryl mentioned that, you know, there's dinosaurs there, right? So they said, how did the Louis family get dinosaurs? Maybe it couldn't fit in their garage, and so now it's displayed here. That's what it is. Well, anyway, thank you, Ken. And I would like to acknowledge the presence of, they're coming later, so maybe but I do want to share with you that I bring you greetings from the Office of the Governor, Dr. Josh Green. The governor sends his regrets about not being able to participate in today's event, but do know that his policy team has been keeping him apprised of our efforts. In fact, we have Dan Kochi, the Governor Green's policy advisor, who's here and a designee to the WDC. So let's give him a round of applause. I also would like to, so housekeeping rules. Bathrooms, if you have not seen it yet, it's right across the hall. There's male, female, and I think there's a family room too, if you so inclined. Also, in order to save trees, we're not printing, or we are printing some agenda, but you can also download them. We have QR codes. And to start our program, I'd like to call on Dan Durger, representing Honolulu Community College, for some welcome greetings. As the director of the Pacific Center for Advanced Technology Training, or PCAT, Dan is responsible for workforce development in the technology sectors among the 7 community colleges that make up the University of Hawaii statewide community college system. Thank you for being such a good venue host, Dan Durger, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks, Bennett, for that very kind introduction. As Bennett said, my name is Dan Durger, and I'm the director of the Pacific Center for Advanced Technology Training, which actually operates across all 7 community colleges as a consortium. Though we are physically located here at Honolulu Community College, our offices are actually on the 5th floor of this very building. So my commute was very short this morning. But on behalf of all of the students, the faculty, and the staff here at HonCC, welcome to our campus. This seems like the perfect place to have a workforce development meeting. Honolulu Community College is known as the campus that builds Hawaii. So we welcome you here. And if you are able to stay, not past 1 o'clock because you might get ticketed, but please do, tour our campus and you can see all the great facilities that we have. In this building alone, you can see workforce in action. The top floor is architecture, engineering, and construction. The 5th floor is PCAT, as I said, where we are located. The 4th floor is Melee, our music program. The 3rd floor is a brand new floor, so it is worth just taking a peek up, just one slide up. Our computer science program has a brand new facility there that will be hosting students starting in the fall. And then the Louis Room shares the 2nd floor with early childhood education. So just in this one building, there's so much workforce development happening, and of course, so much more across our entire campus. One brand new thing that I want to point out is just across the promenade, in building number 3, we have a brand new advanced manufacturing program that's getting ready to start in partnership with the U.S. Navy. A new cohort of students will start in early August there for inside and outside machining. So there's always something new and exciting here at HonCC. We're always adding programs, talking with our industry partners, adapting. I see so many of our partners in the room right now, which is exciting. I was saying to almost everybody I saw coming in, it's nice to see people outside of their Zoom squares, although I'm so used to seeing them in their Zoom squares. Sometimes I'm thrown a little bit. But thank you for making the effort to be here this morning, especially those who came from outer islands. And we welcome you to HonCC and hope you have an amazing morning. The agenda is great, so I'm sure it will be great. So thanks, Bennett. Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah, Bennett just asked me to point out there's a couple of UH folks who are with us who are sitting in the back of the room. Della was part of the roll call, but we have Della Taraoka is here, and hi, Della. And next to Della is Kim Siegenthaler, who is working at the UH Manoa system level, working across all the campuses. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
I wanted you to get some brownie points for that, Dan. Okay, well, also here to offer her own greetings is the state's Chief Information Officer and the Administrator of the Office of Information or Enterprise Technology Services. Christine was appointed by Governor Green last year, was confirmed by the Senate this year at the last legislative session. So as data is going to be such a big part of what we're launching today, I think it's but appropriate for us to have her in our midst. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christine Sakuda.
Aloha mai kako. It's nice to see some familiar faces here, and I want to thank Bennett and also Matt Stevens for the opportunity to say a few remarks. As the State Chief Information Officer, I've been on the job for just under a year, so still trying to get my legs underneath me, and it's been a very, very rewarding experience. And I think having worked with government for a long time, I wasn't really surprised at some of the challenges that I faced when I came in. But I made it a priority to meet with everyone within the ETS, the Office of Enterprise Technology staff, one by one. So that's about 150 people. And what I am amazed at is the amount of commitment that the staff have towards supporting state government, supporting digital transformation, and how can we create pathways for them to thrive. You know, as technology changes, how can we continue to be nimble, to be agile, to meet the demands of AI, as well as cybersecurity and data. And so we really are looking forward to partnering with you and additional members of the community and across state government on how can we really develop a workforce that helps enable, in my case, state government to really be successful and meet the needs of our community. And so, you know, we have a couple of exciting things that are going on. We do have a chief data officer that has been in office for about a couple years. She chairs the data task force that also has been in place for a couple years. And as a group, they've created data governance, data sharing policies that we are in the process of rolling out. And when I meet with all of the department directors, data and AI are top agenda items for them. How can they leverage data and AI to be successful? And so I know this workforce development group is also very interested in leveraging data and AI. So between the data task force and also a data working group that was passed in the last legislative session, we really look forward to working with all of you. So thank you for your commitment to that effort. Mahalo. Oh, I also want to thank the governor for allowing me to serve in this role. It was in the bottom of my notes to make sure I don't forget to thank the governor and also the comptroller, Keith Regan. Mahalo. Thank you.
So we are so blessed at WDC to have a fearless leader like this guy here. Very supportive. I would call him at odd hours because there's something happening, but always very receptive. He is a CEO of a big company, I think 2 companies, right? CEO of Pacific Marine, our Workforce Development Council Chair, Ken Louie, for real opening remarks.
Man, he keeps saying I'm fearless leader, man. I was freaked out last night. I was like walking downstairs in my lanai and there's a big cockroach. Like, ah! Still gives me the GBs. Anyway, aloha, good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for being here. This summit is more than just another meeting. It marks another milestone in our journey towards our commitment to improve Hawaii's workforce. It marks how we collaborate together. And so it's really refreshing to see such a large turnout. I think it's larger than we expected because it shows that many of us here care about our state, our Hawaii, our workers, our kids that live here. We've worked separately. Everyone knows workforce development's a really popular buzzword, but to now to bring those involved here together, to work together, it's powerful. I mean, I think we all know the power of working together. I could tell a story about not working together a number of times. And I think I told the story about my wife and I canoeing, and I wanted to go this way, she wanted to go that way, and then the wave came and knocked us over. So that was a bad example. So again, thank you, everyone. I want to acknowledge people from our city and county, the education and training institutions, the businesses, nonprofits, community leaders. Your presence here speaks a lot, so thank you very much. I'd like to also thank our WDC, led by none other than our Executive Director, Bennett Mizzaluccio. Thank you very much, and her team, Angela, Evan, and we also have people from DLIR, our NGA staff from National Governors Association. Sophia is going to be talking here in a little bit. Our pillar teams will be giving their presentation. Very excited to hear about them. The summit unveils our, as Bennett mentioned, our generational commitment, which is a bold North Star guide to our collective actions moving forward here and over the years to come. We're going to look at real data, set real goals for ourselves, and hopefully find that synergy where we all work together. So thank you again for being here.
Okay, I won't use fearless. How about brave? Oh. Okay, so thank you. And I'd like to now introduce you to a team that has been giving us guidance for the last 6 months. They are here from Washington, D.C. for one purpose, and to get Hawaii moving forward with the implementation of our unified plan. So please welcome policy analyst, senior policy analyst, Sophia Yeager, and I think she's accompanied by Milena Daly, who's our policy advisor also from Washington, D.C. So ladies and gentlemen, from the National Governors Association, please welcome Sophia Yeager.
Thank you, Bennett, and good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having us to your beautiful state. It's the second time we've had the luck to come out here, so always a treat to be working with you all in Hawaii. I won't share too much. I don't want to spoil some of the really exciting unveiling that we have planned for later, but for those who haven't worked with the National Governors Association before, we are the bipartisan membership organization of the nation's governors. So ensuring that governors' bipartisan policy priorities are represented in Washington, and also providing support to governors in their home states to enact their policy priorities at the state level. We work with folks like Dan in governor's offices, and we also work with folks like Bennett and Ken in state workforce boards that are appointed by the governor, as well as state workforce agencies, specifically the appointees that lead those agencies. And as Ken already alluded to, workforce development is a high priority in Hawaii, as well as many states across the country. Workforce development consistently ranks as one of governor's top policy priorities, and really drives a lot of their agendas in their home states. So we've had the pleasure of working with Hawaii as well as a handful of other states in advancing some of their governor's workforce development priorities over the past year since they submitted their WIOA state plans, which for those of you who are familiar with those are very long, very dense documents that often sit on a shelf. But we heard from our members, heard from governors that there was a real appetite to ensure that those plans were strategic and actionable and aligned with the broader workforce ecosystems in their states. So again, we've had the privilege of working with Bennett and Ken and Dan and the entire Hawaii team here on really moving the WIOA state plan into more of an actionable, unified state plan with some really forward-looking, data-informed North Star goals that will help to drive collaboration and ultimately really move the needle for the people of Hawaii. So with that, I again thank you for having us, and I will turn it back to Bennett.
Thank you, Sophia. And such a short visit. She's actually arrived on Monday and leaving tonight. So no time to, holo holo, which is just going around, Sophia, for your information. Okay, so back in December, I'm gonna just show of hands. How many of you were here for the Synergy Summit 1? Oh, a lot. Thank you. Well, we gathered during that last Synergy Summit. Many of you were in that room. We shared a goal, and we shared this particular definition. Go ahead. Synergy. What is synergy? The interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances,
substances and other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. Do you think we have synergy today? Okay. I know you haven't had breakfast, but I need a more robust response than that. Do we have synergy today? Okay, much better. Thank you. So we're going to do something fun now. It's always interesting to see who's in the room. So we're going to bring up again Dan Durger, who will facilitate this Mentimeter portion. A big mahalo to Samantha Larson and Anna Pacheco of AE Consulting for setting up the Mentimeter. Let's give it up for Dan.
Yeah, sorry, you just cannot get rid of me today. So you'll be seeing me again and again. But yeah, we want to do a Mentimeter, first of all, just to get, as Bennett said, a gauge of who's in the room, who is here, and who's the person sitting next to you and who's the person sitting in front of you. So the first thing, are we ready to roll? I can keep, do you want me to vamp? I'll vamp. We can do an old school Mentimeter. Do that. Turn to the person behind, the person to the next to you and in front of you, behind you, and just who are they? Where are they from? Oh, wait a minute. And here's the, the code is in the left-hand corner there. But we're just trying to get a sense. You can see there's private sector, business, our business partners, industry partners who are here, the trainers, the folks who are here from DOE, from the UH system. We have our nonprofit folks that are joining us, philanthropy. And then if you feel like you don't fit into one of those categories, please choose the other option. So our nonprofits are well represented. Thank you to all of the people who are here working with nonprofits and for all the work that you do and all the great partnerships that you have. I know especially with HANCC, we have lots of great nonprofit partners, so thank you for being in the room. Our public government sector makes sense since I know almost everybody sitting in the front is partially representing that group, so makes sense that we have a lot of our public and government partners with us here. And a few people that are in the other, I'm just curious, if you chose other, what do you represent? Where are you from? Anybody who chose the other? Yeah. Labor and industry. Labor and industry, great. Thanks for being here, Tui. Tui's voice is very distinctive. When they did the roll call, I was like, yes, that's Tui. I can tell that that's Tui. Great, so we get a sense here, it's a nice mix of people. We do have a nice mix of that private, public sector, educators in the room. I'm glad to see so many government people here because I know that's people who are helping us to move these initiatives forward. Cannot do it without you, so thanks for being here. Our next question. So where do you call home here in Hawaii? I know we have a handful of visitors joining us, so you might say a hotel, wherever you're staying. But we're just curious where people came from. And I know I spoke with several people this morning that are joining us from Kauai and from Maui. Thank you again for getting up early to make the trip. I know when I have to go the other direction, I'm a whiner about it. And I realize how often people have to come this way. They do it all the time. So I try to catch myself, do a check, especially Matt, because I know yours is more than just a flight too. It's getting to the airport is a trek for you too, I know. So predominantly Honolulu County, of course, not surprising to us, but many, many, many thanks to those who are joining us from other islands. Thank you so much for the efforts you made to be here and the contributions that you're making today. So thank you for that. So when you think of in any way that you've been contributing to workforce development for the state of Hawaii, or maybe even other places, not just here in the state of Hawaii, but how many years have you been in that work? I love right away that the more than 10 years has kind of shot to the top. When I think of people that I know that are in this room have worked in industry, have done teaching, have worked with our legislators, run nonprofits. So that more than 10 years makes sense to me because I know a lot of you have had many roles over those 10 years. And I love too the just getting started, less than a year. Welcome. Thank you for being here to do this work. Thank you for joining this work. It is such an amazing group of people. I love workforce development. I started my career as a teacher and I thought, oh, I'm a teacher. That's what I do. And then next thing I knew, I was a professor at the university. I thought, oh, now I'm a professor. That's what I do. And then workforce came knocking on my door. I was like, I didn't realize this was a thing I could even do. And here I am doing it and excited to be in it. Great. I mean, there's great people in education at all levels, of course, but I love my colleagues in workforce development. So committed to the work and so invested in making opportunities for the residents of our state and really outside of our state even. So thanks everybody for being here. Is there one more, Samantha? A few more, okay. Oh yeah, this one's kind of fun. I think Bennett was proud of this one. So if workforce development were a team sport, what position would you play on that team sport? And I think this is it's gonna build a, yeah, okay. Water, well, you know what? We need the water boy. We need that person, especially here in Hawaii. The first time I saw a parade in Hawaii, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole team of people just bringing water to people in the parade. They need to stay hydrated. So we need that. I like these other ones, coach, lots of coaches, person working in midfield, I like that too. A cheerleader, the goalie, I like that. Somebody has to tend to the goal. Not everything can get through. We need to be judicious about where we put our efforts. And I feel like that's a big part of today. We have lots of great ideas, but now the time has come to start focusing. We've got that utility player, that one's nice. Catcher, sometimes I feel like that's me. I'm just ready for anything. Throw it at me as hard as you can. I'm ready to catch it and move forward with it. So lots of good, oh, a recruiter, that one's a little bit, personal trainer, I like that one too, a little bit different. Great, so we have a nice variety, but again, the idea is it takes more than just the star player. It takes more than just the main coach. It takes everybody. It takes everybody to move this work forward. So wherever you see yourself, I need a janitor more often than I care to admit. This morning, I needed so much help just to get the screen to turn on. Thanks, Lane, in the back for being here to help me turn the screen on. So it takes, I hate the cliche, it takes a village, but it really does. You know, it does take a village. It takes a team to make this work happen. Okay, shift gears a little bit here. When you think of the barriers that we have to the most successful workforce development we can have in our state, what do you see as the biggest barrier? I know there's a lot of little things, but we're curious, like, what are the biggest things that are getting in the way of this work being done? Give you a second to think about that and enter a response in. This is a big one, and people who work with me know Dan says alignment all the time. I say intention and I say alignment. Those are two of my favorite words. And I agree, misalignment in many different ways. Sometimes it's educationally speaking, sometimes it's education to workforce, sometimes it's within the workforce itself. Funding, another big one. You know, we were very fortunate to have the Good Jobs Hawaii funding, and some of the Good Jobs team is here with us today. But that is going, that is sunsetting. Those grants are done. So it's like, what's next on the funding? That's remaining one of the largest ones. Housing always comes up in our workforce development meetings. The lack of housing and the expense of housing is a huge contributor to barriers to successful workforce development in our state. The idea of silos too, and I know this group in particular and the sector partnerships that are happening across the state have gone a long way to breaking down those silos. Of course, silos still exist, but now I feel like they exist because people are they're learning about all of the other options. Whereas before I felt like more silos existed because people were frustrated and just started their own thing. And it's like, okay, well now there's this other thing happening over here, but there's all these other things that are very similar. How do we align all of that? So they're combine our silos and our alignment. Awareness is another really good one. That's one at PCAT where I work that we talk about all the time. You can have the greatest workforce development projects going on, but if nobody knows about them and nobody can take advantage of the opportunities they provide, then it's almost the same thing as not having them at all. So awareness is a really great one that's in there. And then there's a a lot of slow policy change, direct access to employers, coordination, a lot of things that start becoming more specific to, I'm assuming, the roles that the people in the room play. So if you are an industry person, that contact and being able to reach out and get good employees is a critical barrier for you. And again, shifting gears and looking ahead and a little bit more hope for what we're getting out of not just today, but all of the work that we do moving forward. What's one word you can think of that describes your hope for what the future of workforce looks like for our state? I love that possible was one of the, I think it was the first one that came up. It's like, yes, it's so possible. This is not an impossible task that we're faced. It's very possible to get this work done, and we are. There's so many great things that are happening right now. How do we leverage those for even more great things as we move forward? Collaboration, the people in the room right now proves that one. That is a really good one. I like the idea here that synergy, Bennett, did you type that in? Was that you, Bennett, that you put synergy in there? I like that synergy's there. That is, the name of today's event, and, Bennett defined synergy, and I do get that sense of synergy in the room today. I mentioned to somebody earlier, today almost seems, even though it's our second meeting, we've been meeting in smaller groups, today has the energy of a kickoff, which I love. I feel like the energy is very high today, and there's a lot of excitement. And as I look at these words support that. They support that gut feeling I was getting just by seeing people as you were coming in. Or maybe it was the poi donuts, I don't know. Could have been the sugar, hopefully not. That's the last one. Great. Thanks, Samantha, so much for running the Mentimeter. We have a couple other ones that we'll do as we keep moving forward, but now I know we're moving on to the next part of our agenda. Thanks, everybody, for participating in that. Some really good information.
You're the best, Dan. But you know what? It takes a village, right? So we are grateful to Dan for hosting, but I know there's a whole HCC team who are here who've been helping us with everything from setup to the technology part. Where's Elsa? Is Elsa still here? Thank you so much. Elsa, thank you so much for you and your team. Let's give them a round of applause in gratitude for their kind support. So how many of you have heard of Simon Sinek? Oh, okay, many of you, right? So he says, it's not important the who, what, when, where, how. What is important is the why, right? So here to talk about why this is important to us, why it's important to our state, why it's important to him, and his purpose and connection with WDC is a person who I call a Renaissance man because, he did Shakespeare, he's been an actor, and now he's a union boss. And he's dressed like one today. No, I'm just teasing him. I've never seen him in a suit, so this is kind of like, okay. But he looks wonderful in a suit. So please welcome our WDC member, president of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, or IATSE. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tui Scanlon.
Aloha kakai aka kākou, o tui ana scanan ko uinoa, o wau ka pele kikino o IATSE ono lima, IATSE International Trustee, a hilala a hakuka ho mohala limahana o ka mokuaina o Hawaii. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tuiana Scanlon. I'm the president of IATSE Local 665. I'm an international trustee for IATSE and a Hawaii State Workforce Development Council member. This place is the ancestral home of Nakanaka Maoli, the native people of this land, who have stewarded these lands for centuries. We are wayfarers and far seekers, molders and shapers of earth. For Napua o Monanui Akea, the children of the vast Pacific Ocean, Hokupa'a, otherwise referred to as Polaris or the North Star, was and is a cornerstone of seafaring navigation. It represents guidance and steadfastness to this day. Valleys and mountains are barriers that separate people, but the ocean is not. Our ancestors saw the water for what it was, a highway, causeway of possibility, of adventure. Today we embark on a great journey, Identifying our North Star is a critical first step to understanding what lies ahead. But it's not enough to just get our bearings. Without a deep understanding and unshaking belief in the position of Hokupa'a, we are rudderless, sailing blindly into the dark to our impending doom, and the same fate would await any who follow us. It's not enough. It's a cruel fate to know how to get to your destination and lack the means to get there. We need to not only build the ship and sail for those far distant shores, we need to empower others to do the same. We need to provide them with the tools and skills they need to give them ownership of the journey for themselves. It's not enough for us to say, go that way. You'll get there eventually. Probably will work. It's our responsibility to say, follow me. I know the way because I've been there. Let's find new paths together. I work in entertainment, film and TV, trade show conventions, stagecraft, and much, much more. Jargon is part of the job. If we didn't have fancy terms for everything, no one would take us seriously. But when we say workforce development, the soundbite of its definition needs to be palatable and digestible in layman's terms. We're here making it possible for the working people of Hawaii to earn a thriving wage. We're here so that we're making it so that you don't have to move away from here to support your families. We're ensuring that local businesses and Hawaii's economy thrive because of the skilled workers that are lifted through these programs. We're getting Hawaii's workers prepared for the jobs of today and the work of tomorrow. Anyone who's attempted anything of significance can tell you the path to success is anything but linear. The voyage to fulfillment and happiness cannot be charted on a map, and even if it could, the significance of those elements is lost without a driving force propelling us ever forward. Sails need the wind, engines need fuel, and everyone in this room needs their why. If it's okay, I'd like to share mine with you. I didn't have what you would call an easy childhood. My father passed away when I was very young, 33 years ago this May. Our family was houseless for a time. Not long, but I can tell you that every day of that uncertainty and dread felt like an eternity. My mother worked herself to the bone to provide for her 7 children. We moved around a lot. She worked to get us to a better place, and she did. Give her her flowers, she did, but it wasn't easy. I was lucky enough to go to college, where I studied theater performance. And it wasn't until the end of my college career that I realized there's no job placement program. They won't hook you up with an agent, headshots, auditions, and the prospect of a successful acting career in Southern California were so far beyond my reach, it might as well have been on the moon. I stumbled my way into behind the scenes work. I was overworked and underpaid by a non-union employer for years. No healthcare, no retirement, no future. Through sheer grit and determination and no small amount of luck, I found my way to the union. I chose to pursue union leadership because several of my mentors passed away in quick succession. I realized that at some point, I would be an elder to the young up-and-comers. I knew that if I didn't learn how to drive this thing right here and now, there would be a point where they would look to me for guidance and I would have nothing for them, least of all an excuse for why I didn't start learning right there. Sometimes I look back on those days and think I survived out of spite alone. The world seemed like it was geared to grind me to dust at every turn. And I said, no. I've been a union member for 18 years. I've been in leadership for 12. I have a loving wife, 2 amazing kids, and we're homeowners. At least once every day, I say aloud, I love my family, I love my house, I love my home, I love my life. I would not wish my path on anyone. But I'm happy that I made it to where I am. And I'm looking forward to where I'm headed. There are brighter days ahead. And I will make that a reality for the others who are on similar paths to the one I was on. I will make it easier for the ones behind me. Every day, I am actively choosing to be the father, the mentor, and the leader I wish I had. And the challenge that's laid before us, there will be hard truths we need to hear. Stark realities we have to face, and seemingly insurmountable challenges that we must overcome. There's a widely circulated quote from an unknown author that goes, if we do not face our demons, they will raise our children for us. Our excuses will be their inheritance. I refuse to let that happen. I'll leave you with a story that I treasured as a child. A man walks up to a beach after a heavy storm. The wind and the waves have littered the beach with an immeasurable number of starfish, and they're dying in the sunlight, just out of reach of the water. Out of the corner of his eyes, he notices movement in the distance. Someone is running frantically up and down the beach. As he gets closer, he realizes it's a child, desperately throwing starfish back into the sea. He gets closer. The kid is sobbing, exhausted, in a frenzy, but out of breath and running out of steam fast. And he runs up and he says, hey, kid, slow down, take a breath. How long have you been out here? And in between the kids' racking sobs, they manage to get out. They're dying. They need help, the water. And the man sits down and he says, hey, kid, it's okay. It's nobody's fault. But you got to let it go. These starfish are going to die. And there's nothing we do here is going to make a difference. And with defiance burning in their eyes, the kid reaches down for the nearest starfish, hurls it with all their might into the ocean and says, it made a difference to that one. I joined the Hawaii Workforce Development Council because I want to make a difference. I volunteered without any prior knowledge of its history, its work, or its mechanisms, because somebody said people need help. I needed help once too. I know I can't save them all, but I can damn well try. That's my why. I look forward to learning yours. We are not the tip of the spear. We're the shovels and the pickaxes that precede the road grader. We are here to clear the impediments that have hindered the creation of much-needed pathways to meaningful wages, fulfilling work, adequate housing, and economic stability for Hawaii's workforce. I look forward to our journey together. And if I'm not sailing right next to you, I'll meet you on the next shoreline that we're headed to. Let's make it a great day, and welcome to the Synergy Summit 2.
Oh, Dewey, you touch my heart, and I know you touch everybody's heart here. Thank you so much. So let me frame the conversation. Every 4 years, in order to continue to receive federal funds, the state of Hawaii, along with the other states, have to submit what they call a workforce plan or a WIOA plan. That plan is due March of every 4 years, so it was last year, 2024. So we're in the implementation stage. We submitted our plan in March. It got approved by the U.S. Department of Labor in June. And now we had our Synergy Summit last year, and now we're Synergy Summit 2. So we actually started gathering stakeholders in October of 2023, even before the plan was due. And in so doing, we touched bases with other stakeholders, and we realized we're not the only one who is in this space. In fact, our slide, there's other folks who already either have developed or in the process of developing their own strategic plans, whether it's DOE, whether it's UH, P20, DBED, DLIR, Perkins, Workforce Funders Collaborative, each of them. I just want to underscore the fact that all of us are thinking of the same thing. And that's what I mean by synergy. Where's Josh Wish? Josh, tell us about your group. Holler, because I can't remember your group name, because that's the organization that's also now doing. You want to come up here? No, because it's important. Sorry, it is not my script, but but I was just inspired because I'm like, he's having conversation. I'm like, that's what we're trying to do. Go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. This was not planned, I promise you. This was not part of the original bit, but I'll do anything Bennett says. My name is Josh Wish. I work for an organization called Holomua Collective. We've been around for about 3 years now, and really the mission of our org is to give local working families hope they can stay in Hawaii by making sure they can afford to stay. And so we've been doing work around everything from housing to economic growth. And we're going to be spending increasing amounts of time on workforce development and trying to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel, but working with folks like Bennett and Matt Stevens, who we met with twice in the last 2 weeks and had told us he was going to call us before we called him, and Steve and Tammy and all the other great folks in this room. So looking forward to being part of the utility player team. Put us in, coach, for whatever you need us for.
The one who says janitor, right? No, but Josh Risch is an attorney, very well connected, just a wonderful spirit. So again, in all humility, WDC was certainly not the first to recognize the importance of taking care of workforce development, because workforce development is economic development, is workforce development. So the State Unified Plan, as the name suggests, really brings a cross-section of our workforce community in alignment. So from the get-go, we intended it to be not a document that would sit in a shelf waiting for the next iteration after 4 years. No, we wanted it to be a live document. And so here we are. We have 4 pillars in the state's unified plan. This must be something familiar to you, most of you anyway. So our 4 pillars are: ensure alignment with economic growth, strengthen Hawaii's education and training alliances, eliminating third pillar, eliminating barriers to career success. 4 is creating workforce synergy in our community. Would you believe, so each of these pillars are led by pillar catalyst team. So what is a catalyst? Oh, this is a timeline. So we, again, especially for the board members, this is very, how do you call it, familiar to you. So we're here. We started this year in January. In July, we're doing a pulse check. We're having a report by the catalyst teams, but we're working towards September because September is Workforce Development Month. So we're hoping that the governor would proclaim Workforce Development Month, which is the 3rd year that he's going to be doing this, and hopefully unveiling the North Star for the rest of the state to launch it publicly. So you get a preview of what the governor would be hopefully launching in September. And in December, we hope to submit a report to the governor and to DLIR for implementation status. So here's a definition. We had a definition of synergy. This is a definition of catalyst because we have catalyst pillar team leaders. So something that makes a chemical reaction happen more quickly without itself being changed. Again, it's the change. It's a positive change that needs to happen with the synergy. So with that, we're going to have our pillar presentations, and we are so happy to have our first pillar team who's going to make our presentation. Pillar number 1, Thomas Chuck and Dan Durger, with aligning economic growth with workforce development. Let's give it up for this amazing leaders.
I'd like to say this is the last time you're going to hear from me today, but that would be a lie. But I've had the great pleasure to work with Thomas on the Alignment with Economic Growth Catalyst team. And thanks to everybody in the room who's been part of the discussions we've had. We kicked this off at the event back in December. We've had 2 meetings since then to gather input that you're going to see the result of today. So to get started, we are the very first pillar here, and we are talking about multiple things. So Thomas and I just want to be sure everybody's clear when we spoke with our teams separately, what we were actually talking about. One is when we say workforce development, what do we really mean by that? There's a lot going on there. So what do we actually mean? The other piece we're talking about is labor shortage. That comes up time and time again. So what are the issues involved with labor shortage? How do we help to improve that? Living wage came up again and again. That actually was a pretty strong focus of our group. People wanted to talk about living wage. We even talked about having a living wage summit at some point in time. Economic diversification is another key thing we spoke about. And then lastly, what are the jobs for the future? For our higher ed folks, not jobs, JFF, Jobs for the Future. That is an organization that higher ed works with to work on workforce development. But for what is the future of Hawaii? What are the jobs that will be here in Hawaii? How will the current jobs maybe morph, and will there be new ones? So the very first piece of this was the workforce development. What does workforce development mean? And our group came up with a couple of ideas when we started hashing out, when we talk about it, are we talking about the existing sectors that already have an established sector partnership? So you'll remember from Good Jobs Hawaii and predating Good Jobs Hawaii, a lot of sector partnership work has been done across our state. Creative industries, healthcare, IT, clean energy, engineering, transportation, agriculture, aquaculture, they all already have thriving sector partnerships. So when we were having our conversations about what does this mean, we kept coming back to this. Is this where the focus should be? On the sectors that are already up and running? Or should it focus on these existing sectors and then we start strategically adding sectors to that? Is that maybe the strategy we need to take a look at? Or should we focus only on new ones? Only new, but they would be in-demand sectors that don't have a sector partnership yet. Should that be the focus? Should we work on that and try to stand up new sector partnerships? And then lastly, one of the things we talked about was struggling sectors that may or may not have a sector partnership. So part of this then, of course, involves identifying what those struggling sectors would be, and then identifying who are the right people to lead those sector partnerships and get that work moving forward. Because if you've attended any of the sector partnerships that are already happening, it might seem deceptively easy to you how those operate, because they're very smooth. They operate very smoothly now. But it takes some very concentrated effort to get them up and running. So that was part of the discussion of our group. Thomas is going to walk you through the other things we were talking about with labor shortage. Oh, you have your own mic.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I got handed the mic. Evan handed me the mic just now. So, okay, so just some kind of overview of some of the stuff, like for all of the things that Dan talked about. There were some patterns that we observed that emerged. So first pattern was data. There was a lot of requests around the data around all of these issues, right? So when we talk about data when it comes to labor shortage, some of the things that came up were using Lightcast, using that tool to start to take advantage of that tool and the projections that Lightcast can give you. And those of you in the room who are familiar with Lightcast, I think it's like there's a subscription to it, and I know like Matt probably knows how to explain it better than I can, but yeah. So data is the theme for a lot of the things that our conversations were around. Surveying employers, identifying the skills listed in job postings, crossing all sectors. Alignment with DBED, and I believe we talked a little bit earlier about the data collective. This past legislative session, DBED and DOTAX were added to this. I think it's I remember the acronym. I think it's SLDS. I believe is that the right acronym? But I don't remember what it stands for. And then you have in migration and out migration amongst industries. So these are just, again, things that we talked about as a pillar catalyst team. We talked about connecting more with the pillar catalyst team number 2, which is on education and training. That there needs to be this kind of push-pull between the economic development side of things and what education and training are doing, obviously, but that was a topic that came up. And then this is the other kind of pattern that we saw amongst all of our conversations was that we're not just talking about one sector. We need to kind of learn from all the different sectors, whether there is a sector partnership or whether there isn't a sector partnership yet, whether it's a sector that's a sector of promise for Hawaii and in terms of economic diversification, or even like something like tourism or the visitor industry or some of our more already established industries. Where can we start learning from each other and apply some of these thoughts towards other sectors? So that was the labor shortage one. Living wage, did you want me to do living wage as well, Dan? Okay, so living wage, again, the data, there's a data conversation. So much to kind of unpack there just with that one topic in the context of workforce development and economic development in Hawaii. Comparison of starting salaries to ALICE, wage data that includes the value out of benefits. This piece of conversation was really fascinating. I felt like we kind of hit on something pretty cool here, because so much of what thriving in Hawaii looks like Tui talked about so great in such a great way earlier, is not just about the money that you have in your bank account at the end of the month, right? There's other things that can be that can add value to a job that an employer could consider providing that maybe isn't so much of a dollar sign attached to it as it is a quality of life type of approach to employment. So now we're starting to see how, like, at least in the conversations that we had, I started to see some cultural things, like systemic things that we needed to think about in terms of how do we kind of turn this boat around or move it in the right direction. And part of it is working with employers. So if we're going to do some kind of a living wage summit, it would be to talk with employers around what are things that we can do besides increasing salary that could help make a job in Hawaii something desirable for whether it's the rising generation or the current generation or the aging generation, whoever, right? If we're talking about labor shortage, if we're talking about living wage, what are some of those cultural things, systemic things that we can address, that we can look at, that might help address some of these things? And then again, all sectors, again, that was that pattern, right? So let's see, the next one was economic diversification. So more of the same, a lot of data discussion, looking at what we're currently doing in terms of how we're expending our resources in workforce development and in economic diversification, but then looking where we could be spending it, where opportunities to maybe pilot, maybe try new things, or to take a look at what's happening elsewhere and leverage what makes Hawaii unique. We tend to look at it as a competitive disadvantage to be, a landmass in the middle of this vast ocean, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. How can we flip that script and turn it into an advantage, a competitive advantage for us here? And then I think, again, besides the data, it's again this last one here, working across all sectors. What can we learn from each other? We talk about IT, but how do we? And these are conversations that are already happening, right? But how is AI impacting the IT sector, whether that's hardware or software? Right? There's the actual AI tools like ChatGPT or Claude or any of those types of tools. But then there's also the hardware side of things. We're seeing more, Benson and I were talking about potential around renewable energy, and maybe we're seeing how AI companies are recognizing that, hey, to use AI in our processing or building the AI models, we need more power, we need more electricity, we need more energy. How could we do that here in Hawaii? So it's starting to like get out of these traditional mindsets around what a career pathway is and start pulling from other sectors and learning how we can start to leverage those to diversify the economy. I love Dan had brought up, like, we're not talking about building another tourism company, another like tour company, right? But it's about how can we make a new tour company that maybe leverages AI or maybe leverages something other than what we've traditionally done. So some of that kind of thought went into our conversation. And then I think this next one is the last one, future ready jobs. Again, what Dan was saying earlier about the jobs for the future, it's like, I guess, lowercase jobs for the future, right? And not the capital JFF. But again, data, right? Where are the jobs going? And maybe even the data, maybe in the LICAS data isn't enough. Maybe we need to kind of be a little bit more courageous and fearless. Maybe that cockroach is the opportunity, right? I don't know. No. Sorry, that sounds kind of weird to say, but I hate cockroaches too, by the way. But where are these opportunities that maybe we don't see? And maybe I'm not calling all of us old, but us old futs in this room, maybe we're not the ones to see that. Maybe we need to be better at working with the younger generation to maybe they see something that we can't see or we're not equipped to see. And then all sectors. I like the entrepreneurship thing. In my work, my main focus has been over the last couple of years, creative industries and helping with the creative industry sector partnership. And I just keep seeing this entrepreneurship thing continues to kind of bubble up to the surface and helping individuals learn how to run their own business, learn how to market their business ideas, learn how to sell, learn how to make a value proposition, and that aspect of entrepreneurship, and how even if it's just to learn how to do that and then apply it to a traditional job, a 9-to-5 type of job, and how much any of the employers in the room probably would agree that some of those kind of soft skills or just more transferable skills are what we're needing, and what I keep hearing from employers that they want and they need is a self-starter, someone who can problem solve, someone who has critical thinking skills and who can communicate well. Those are basics. We can do that. That's not that hard. What's hard is connecting those trainings, I think, to opportunities, these future ready jobs. How do we do that? How do we align those things? How do we coordinate those things? So anyway, that was our pillar.
Yeah,
I think
that's it.
That's
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah, thanks again to everybody who joined us for these discussions.
yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks to Thomas for being such a great partner on this.
Dan, I'm so lucky I get to work with this guy. Oh my gosh, he did all the work. His name should have been first.
That is
Oh my
not
word.
true. And of course, thanks to Bennett for her leadership. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. They were like overachievers. They had 3 meetings. So we'll now yield the floor to our Pillar 2 folks, and it's Keala, Monaco, and Wanel Kaneshiro. Let's give it up for this wonderful people.
Okay. I'm Keala, Director of Workforce Innovation for the UH Community Colleges. Wanel is you can.
Hi, Wanel Kaneshiro, Workforce Development for the Hawaii State Department of Education.
So we are not the overachievers that Dan and Thomas were. We're going to do our best. So we are facilitating Pillar 2, which is strengthening Hawaii's education and training alliances. I think our pillar is special because we are kind of already in progress. The 2 of us are from pretty major organizations that do education and training in the state of Hawaii. So our conversations in our pillar discussions were sometimes devolved into details and things that we do. So anyways, to review Pillar 2, close collaboration between education and training institutions and the private sector ensures that credentials earned are meaningful, portable, and valued by employers. So these are the things we always kept top of mind as we had our discussions. It's crucial to align educational offerings with real-world economic and cultural needs. And then our goal to build stronger bridges. So next, I think, right? So in our first meeting, and Winnell will talk about this more, we basically went over all the pillar objectives and we ranked which ones were most important to us. So thank you to whoever in this room participated in our Catalyst discussions. But it came out that aligning workforce training with industry needs was number one. Number two was enhanced collaboration between education and employers, along with other things. But clearly, the most important thing that came out of our discussions was better collaboration between education and industry. So I'm going to let Winnell talk about the details.
So some of the things that that we discussed in our Pillar Catalyst meeting was trying to catalog some of the work that we already have been doing. And I think we have been doing a lot of this work already, as you can see. And Dan and Thomas kind of covered a lot about the sector partnerships. What's also currently taking place in the workforce development realm is advisory boards, committees, and councils, which are really on the education side for us important, because this is where we are able to get input and feedback from, at least for K-12, from post-secondary and industry, to be able to build out our program so that we're aligned with what is currently industry practices and standards. We also are trying to better define our career pathways through these advisory connections, to make sure that what we are preparing our kids for is really what is needed in the current and future workforce. We are trying to increase industry recognized training and certification programs for both our educators and our students, so to try to get them some of the certifications needed for the workforce prior to them entering the workforce. Industry-driven work-based learning opportunities. So really working together with employers to be able to provide our teachers and students more experiences, more hands-on immersive experiences, so they better understand what the needs are in terms of skills and resources and knowledge. Stackable industry recognized credentials. So again, going back to trying to make sure that our students are developing the skills that they need in order to be successful in the workforce. Registered apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. Learning spaces designed to reflect actual work sites. So a lot of our classrooms on our campuses are being morphed into more, into areas that reflect more of what they would experience or see in the workforce. So one of these efforts is with Healthcare Association of Hawaii and trying to transform our health services classrooms into clinical spaces so that our students can get more authentic learning experiences. Financial support for learners, such as paid internships and financial assistance for training programs in post-secondary education, and then wraparound services to support our trainees, so wraparound services to support our learners. A lot of times it's not just making sure that they are getting the content, sometimes they need a little bit more support, counseling, advising, and guidance. So those are some of the things that we are currently doing across the education industry sectors. But we know that there's lots more work ahead. And I think that we can do a lot more collaborating to make sure that we are preparing our kids for, like what Thomas said, across all sectors. So as our strategy statement for Pillar 2, the education and industry sectors will coordinate work-based learning opportunities for high school, college, and adult learners to build stronger pipelines to workforce. This includes collaborating on earn and earn pathways that allow learners to earn a wage while acquiring the skills, knowledge needed to be successful in the workforce. Internships and industry-led training across all sectors align with workforce needs, and improve career pathways and apprenticeship programs align with current and emerging industry standards and practices to ensure clear on-ramps to employment. So these are some of the things that we are going to be focusing on moving forward. And trying to really build better connections between education and industry.
Okay, so next steps. We're going to continue to engage K-12, post-secondary, and industry as we move forward. Establish more sector partnerships, as Thomas mentioned earlier, to create viable earn and learn pathways. And try to get more done in terms of identifying credentials, industry recognized credentials and certificates. And obviously always to identify and improve financial supports. So we don't have like a big sexy next step for what we're doing, but that is because this is what Wanel and I do. This is our job to create stronger connections with industry. So we will continue this work. We'll continue the discussions. And if anyone out there in industry wants to talk to us, please come talk to us. This is what we do. If you don't come talk to us, we will come find you. So thank you.
I mean, just to follow up on that, I think what's been inspiring, at least in the 2-3 years that I've been doing this work, is that, you know, a lot of you have been reaching out and have been wanting to help support our students to make sure that they're ready for your workforce. And for us, we're very appreciative and grateful for that. And like Akala said, please reach out. We are here and we want to make sure that our kids are ready for you. So whatever we can do, let us know. And I echo Kala, if you don't come up to us, we'll find you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great work, Pillar 2. Thank you so much. And we know we said we couldn't get rid of him, but here comes Dan again. Dan, for the next Mentimeter. You have the questions?
Yeah, the idea of the Mentimeter was to kind of break things up in between presentations. And you're probably thinking, we need to break Dan up a little bit. We're seeing like too much of Dan. But that was the point. And this one now, and I know you've only heard from Pillar 1 and Pillar 2, but just a quick reminder, Pillar 3 is about removing barriers to career success. So think wraparound services. How do we support participants? How do we ensure that everybody has the same opportunity to access programs? And then that creating workforce synergy in our community. The idea, think of the definition that Wanel said earlier about synergy and what that looks like across all of these systems. So just where do you see yourself in these? I'm anticipating that a lot of people will say you connect to all of them because most of your work does connect with all of these. And these 4 pillars were selected because the pillars themselves have synergy. They connect. Thomas, one of our main points was we see the connection across all of them. And we know our pillar needs to work even more closely with number 2 because aligning the economic growth with the actual training of people to have jobs. If we have economic growth, the more economic growth we have, the more people we need to do those jobs. So there's that natural connection. But as we see here, lots of people identifying in the green area with the educators. So thank you all of our trainers, educators, people, whether you work for the DOE, UH, other education on the island, or you're a trainer out of in industry. You're doing workforce development as an industry partner. We're glad you're here. It's a good mix, a really good mix. I'm not taking it personally, Thomas, that ours had the lowest. I'm not taking that personally at all. But you are welcome. You are welcome to join our pillar. I understand. I know Kayla made the comment about things being sexy or not. I understand maybe ours isn't the sexiest one, but it's a critical. It's the critical one. Yeah. So we welcome and thank you to one group I didn't thank were our industry partners who were part of that group. A lot of what you were seeing that Thomas and I were talking about were the ideas from our industry partners. That were the things, especially the one that Thomas pointed out about benefits. Like what does it, not just salary, but what is the value of benefits? Employers are like, we want to get that word out. We want people to understand you might make $1 more over here, but here with us, with these benefits, you're making $10 an hour more. So people just understand that truth when they make their decisions. Great. Thanks, Samantha. Okay, again, this is another one I know Bennett likes, sort of like the sports one we had earlier. But if our workforce system were a movie, what genre would you say it would be? Is it a drama? Is it sci-fi? Is it a documentary? What's the first one? Is the first one comedy? Is that the first one? Oh, action. I'm glad it wasn't comedy. I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. So is it an action film? Is it a drama? It's a sci-fi. I like we're clarifying sci-fi is that we're innovating. We're looking into the future. Not a sci-fi where we've gone into the past, but we're looking into the future. Yeah, I feel like this notion that it's a drama with dramatic twists and turns that kind of naturally lends itself to the work that we do. I know my biggest adventure of the day is turning on my email first thing in the morning. It's like, what awaits me today? It's a very dramatic opening my email. I wish it were a little bit more action-packed. It's usually just very dramatic, sometimes traumatic for Dan. So yeah, it looks like this notion that there are lots of twists and turns, and we acknowledge that that's part of the work that we do. But like a good drama, it draws you in. It's interesting. It's exciting. You want to watch to the end. What's the ending going to be? So hopefully it's an inspirational drama when we get to the end. So if you had magic powers, speaking of the sci-fi movies, if you had magic powers, which would you choose to improve for our workforce outcomes today? So you can, I think on this one, they can choose up to 3. Is that right, Samantha? Yeah. So, and again, these are magic powers. That's why we're saying there's childcare, readily available childcare everywhere. That would be great, wouldn't it? That would be an amazing magic power. Free college and training for everyone. Living wages for everybody. That would be a really great superpower or magic power as well. Yeah, naturally, I think if we had guessed what this would be, I think most of us would have guessed that the living wage would be the highest, but it's remarkably equal, especially the first 4. Yeah, the thing about this one to me is we do have magic powers. Everybody in this room has magic powers. We all have superpowers, all of us sitting here right now. So I know this might seem in some ways, oh, that seems impossible. We can't get there. But I think it is possible. Like I said, all of us have magic powers, and we can make these things happen, and at least incrementally improve these things. Maybe not in my lifetime. I know Thomas was saying about the old folks in the room not knowing AI. So it's maybe not in my lifetime, but in my students' lifetime, certainly. Okay, you have $10 million. After you give me some of that money, you're going to invest in workforce development. So what would you fund first? What's the very first thing you would want to fund if you had $10 million? Wow, $10 million for sector partnerships? Yes, I love that. The chamber probably likes that one too. My chamber friends here, they like that one. Affordable housing, that's a really, really great answer. Although sadly, I'm not sure what 10 million is gonna get me for affordable housing here, but that is a great answer. Lots of people saying sector partnerships, supporting education, pre-apprenticeship programs and apprenticeship programs in general, internships, apprenticeships, such a strong way forward for people to give them that work-based learning experience. So I see those apprenticeships and internships up there. Training programs near and dear to my heart because that's what we do at PCAT. So thank you, whoever gave me some of that money. I appreciate it. Yeah, earn and learn, those paid apprenticeships, and thinking of that model is becoming more and more, it's been around for a while, but it's becoming more and more popular and more prevalent. Renewable energy, I like that one too, especially for where we are, for our state. Great. I guess I was thinking 10 million wouldn't go very far, but if all of you had $10 million, that's good. Now we're talking. Oh, wow. Thank you so much. I won't even take all that money, so thank you. That's awfully nice. I don't know who said that, but I'll be happy to speak with you after this. The rail to UH. Well, the rail is dangerously close to Han CC. Anybody who came that way can attest to that, or who's been driven down Dillingham anytime recently. But you're right, that will significantly change how we operate here at Han CC when the rail the stop is literally right here. It will take you 2 minutes to walk from this building to the stop. That will change how we operate here, and it will be an exciting change. Great, are we good? Excellent. Hey, thanks for participating in this. I know it's fun to dream, but the way that you get to reality is by dreaming. So thanks for helping us dream. Thanks for helping us come up with these great ideas. It's exciting to see how we can make it really happen.
One more time, Dan Durger, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever get rid of the day job, there's entertainment waiting for you. Come see Tui. That's right, different union. Okay, well, moving on to our third pillar, we have Cheryl Cross as the pillar catalyst team, and you're going to explain about Rona, right? Okay, thank you so much, Cheryl.
Aloha. Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your energy. I know this is the halfway point and everyone's going to get a little tired. So I just want to say on behalf of my colleague, Rona Fukumoto, who is not able to be here today, that the why that we're here, both as Workforce Development Council women and Pillar 3 leads, is that we're here to eradicate stigma. And I want to be very sensitive to the new administration's agenda. This was called DEI. But out of allegiance to our new president and their directive, we have made this very broad. We're removing the barriers to workforce success. So bear with me. And for those of you who are sitting with specific populations in mind, I want you to know that it's really hard to talk about one without talking about all. So please know that we're pulling you all together and we love you all. It's not one child over the other child or one population over the other. We're doing all of our best to remove barriers for everyone. So thank you for that. Thank you also, Tui, who just left the room, for explaining your why. I never follow a talk without crying, so all of my mascara is gone, but I forgot that you were giving that presentation. We did a lot of prep work in order to prepare for our pillars, and I'd like to thank the staff for their wonderful assistance to us, and of course to Bennett for being such a fearless leader, and our chair, Ken Louie. All right, so Pillar 3, what are we here for today? I told you my why. Let's see if I can get this moving. We're really here to eliminate barriers to career success. Hawaii should be prioritizing services for vulnerable populations. We already do that, don't we? The government's fundamental responsibility, more than other stakeholders, is to ensure equity and opportunity for all in the workplace. This does fulfill our specific WIOA mandates. Someone asked me earlier today, what do you think the point is of the Workforce Development Council? I said, we're an advisory board. I gave them my standard pat answer. We're an advisor to the governor, of course, but what are we really? We're a collective of individuals who each have an agenda because of our why, because of our story. I wish I could have thought of this answer before I spit out the pat one, the meme, the Facebook meme. But we're really here to do better for those behind us. Tui, you explained that so beautifully. You've lived your life, you've had your struggles because you want to make things better for all of us. Thank you. All right, moving on. So what have we done? We have been bringing together some workshops. We have really tried to look at the 5 key issues that we all know, so let's just go through them briefly. We're here to identify and address these key barriers. Let's talk about childcare. Let's talk about transportation, digital access, those who've been involved in the justice system with criminal records, or those with disabilities as a start. Again, we're talking about all of them. Improving the outreach and engagement strategies within those underserved or marginalized communities. Again, we're going to try and stay away from the stigma language. Expanding access to workforce services and training, making programs more affordable, accessible, and relevant to those with these barriers. Identifying those with the barriers, I think it should be on there. Strengthening the collaboration with community-based organizations. Employment challenges are often tied to broader life stability. We all know this. We talk about childcare, we talk about transportation, we talk about education, certifications, very important as we stand here at Honolulu Community College. And then our support services, our wraparound programs. You're all here. Thank you so much. Some of you aren't in the room, but we want to talk about housing, mental health support, financial coaching. These things are somewhat essential, we think, for the long-term success of everyone. So let's talk about what we've done. We've done a lot of working sessions, just like all the pillars. Thank you again for leading us down the path and really giving us a clear, very structured forum for us to ideate. We get the biggest one. I think our bucket is the largest, to be honest with you. And it was really hard to talk about what we could do because so much is already happening. So many of our partners are already doing such good work. So how can we really cull down between the state agencies, the nonprofits, the workforce providers rather, and community leaders to see what can we do that's differently or what can we aid and what's missing? What we heard clearly, and here's the call to action, is that there's a lot of great programs out there, but guess what? They don't speak to one another. They're disconnected. So we're focused on identifying gaps. We're focused on identifying the gaps. How can we connect these services into a more coordinated and supportive system? We have a committee for data. We have all of the components, but how do we get everyone working? I'll tell you what we learned. Oops, let me go back. Okay, so what we're learning is this, and I want you to go to your phones if you can, and if you don't know these programs, please look them up. We all know there's gaps across the state. Those of you who work at the state know this. Those of you who serve as advisors, council people, or board members see it, and that's our job, is to try and bring those gaps together. But how might we, my favorite 3 words, how might we move between the agencies and truly create the symbiotic relationship? What works? We went outside of Hawaii to look at other states, which we normally do, and we chose PRISM in Oregon. It is a statewide performance system that helps track service delivery, outcomes, and equity throughout all workforce programs. There was another one that came up highly rated, and that was EconoView. It's a labor market analysis tool based in states like California, Texas, and Florida. And this identifies employer needs, tracks regional trends, and guides planning. These systems show what's possible, the art of the possible. And it might not be a solution for Hawaii, but the conversation is definitely worth it. I think we are very, very collaborative as a group, as a village, as former Chair Alan Hayashi calls Hawaii. We're not really a state, we're not really islands, we're a village, we're villages. But I think that there's some good ideas here that are worth the investment. So our preliminary asks are this. We're gonna ask for money. We think that a gaps analysis is essential for this. We'd like to do it in 2025, but 2026 is probably a little bit more feasible. We'd like to see if we can identify the barriers to employment across all regions. Being centered in Honolulu, but I chose this position because I get to advocate for the entire state. You know that being on Maui, Kauai, the Big Island, or anywhere else, Molokai, Lanai, anywhere, you already are at a disadvantage. The jobs aren't there as much as they are here. Identifying nonprofits and data systems we can support. Aloha United Way has, I think it's 211, or is it 211? Which is it? 211. 211 is a brilliant program. There are many of these types of programs that are already in sync. They're already working. We don't need to recreate the wheel, but how might we, as a collective, key in to these key programs? Our goal is to build the foundation for this coordinated referral data framework and really, truly use that to inform policy. Didn't someone say earlier the big sexy idea? That was my big sexy ask, is that we're going to be asking for funding. What's next? Our goal, let's refine those metrics. We've got data teams, we've got brilliant people at the state, including our new IT person. We've got the CIO running a good ship. We've got more money infused into programs. We have the backbone. Let's take those metrics that we find and put them towards successful measures. We will obviously prepare more as the Synergy Summit continues going towards the state plan, and then look at more, I want to say cross-sector engagement on how we might just really work together on this. So I just want to say thank you. Rona felt terrible that she wasn't able to attend. She's put a lot of time and energy, but she asked me to ask each one of you, what will you do differently today? And not just specifically for our pillar, but I'd like to share that council work is volunteer. A board or a commission is something each one of you in this room, if you're not already doing it, can do it. And it's so gratifying to be able to stand and say to a group of people that I do this. But what's more gratifying is I get to bring people to the table. I'm a recruiter, and as a connector, as somebody who does this for a living, I get to bring people like Lei Nakamura, who I'm bringing on the stage on Friday at the Hawaii Employers Council for her to talk about Work Hawaii. Shantae will be joining me on that same panel to talk about all of the wonderful things that are going on for the Department of Corrections Rehabilitation Industries. Kelly Uemura will be talking about the workforce development program that he created. That's my contribution. What are you doing? Thank you so much.
Ooh, Pillar 3, you rock. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Okay, well, before we call up Pillar 4, I wanted to give you a preview of what's to come so you can stay glued to your seats and make sure that you come back after the break, okay? So after this, we're going to bring up Pillar 4. And then after Pillar 4, we're going to segue into the unfolding of the North Star. But I see in the room now, and I'm sorry, I'm going to bring him up on stage to say a few remarks before we call Pillar 4, because after we do Pillar 4, it's going to like move like clockwork. So we want to make sure that the Director of Business, Economic Development and Tourism is here. Let's give it up for Jimmy Tokioka. Which microphone you like?
Anyone? Good morning and aloha. You know, I kind of feel embarrassed being called up here, Bennett, because I'm the director of DBED, but Thomas is the one who's doing all the work. And many of you in here, I remember when we met the last time, I was sitting next to Mr. Schatz, and he said, you know, Jimmy, DBED hasn't done what you guys are doing now, and we want to do more because we know that DBED is the agency that connects the business community to the government. And what the business community has told us loud and clear is workforce is their main concern, because wherever people are going, they're not here working. And so we need to figure out how to fill those gaps. And I think for myself and Deputy Director Dane Wicker, you know, we just want to give as many resources as we can to this effort and stay out of the way so that all of you can do what you do, and we can be a part of connecting people who need work with the workforce. So thank you, Bennett, for all you do. Again, Thomas, thank you to the DOE and the DOE team and all the state agencies that are here. How many people are from the neighbor islands? Good. And what I think Cheryl said earlier, you are at a disadvantage being on the neighbor islands, but for us, for me, coming from the neighbor islands, we want to make sure that we connect those opportunities. I know Jackie is outside, or she might have come back in the room, but connect with us because that's our job and that's what we want to focus on. So thank you again very much, Bennett, and have a great summit. I'm not going to be able to stay the whole time, but I know Thomas will be briefing us when he gets back. How's it doing?
Thank you for your support, Jimmy. Jimmy has been there from the get-go, including the small huddles that we've had in November of 2024. I did want to acknowledge the presence of several other board members who are here and to acknowledge and make sure that we have them on a roll call. We have Leslie Wilkins from Maui who's here. Board member. We also have Dion Dizon from Clear. So that makes 23 on the roll call. Okay, so as I was starting to share that after we, how do you call that? We roll out our North Star, we're gonna have a break for 15 minutes, but after that, we're going to have a panel of great people, and I'm sure you're going to hear more from them. And then after that, we're going to go into some next steps. And then after that, we're going to do a funding document that we're going to again be previewing. It's fantastic. And then please stay because we're going to hear from the rising generation. This is Angela Chalk. She's our Hele Imua intern, and she will be speaking. You heard from Tui with a Y. You have to hear her story, and I'm telling you, it's powerful. She did a preview for us, and it made me cry. But anyhow, so all of the folks that we've been working together, I really appreciate you. But I want to just give a special mention to these two individuals who have been just tied at the hip. I don't know, whatever you call it. We're just a core group and develop friendships in the process. So let's give it up for our Pillar 4 Catalyst team. Kiala Peters, who's a retired executive from the Chamber of Commerce of Hawaii, and Matt Stevens, who is the executive director of the Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative. There you go. Thank you. And just so you know, I just want to make sure that people appreciate this. Matt Stevens lives on the Big Island, and it takes him an hour to commute to the airport, okay, from where he's at. And then he has to take the early morning flight. So he woke up at 2:30 in the morning this morning to get here. No, I'm not kidding. That's true. Yes.
Thank you, Bennett. And if you could help me thank our leaders of our first 3 pillar teams for their leadership and presentations. Thank you. So as Bennett mentioned, we have made it to Pillar 4, which means we have also made it soon to the unveiling of the North Star. And that is when we're going to invite Bennett back up to do us the honors of sharing that. But I want to start by saying our pillar, Creating Workforce Synergy, really underscores that there is unprecedented synergy, alignment, collaboration happening in our state already. I look across the room and we have been working together 4 years very closely. And so I like to think of today as really advancing us to the next level. We're building on the work that we've done together, the years that we've spent in the trenches, and thanks to Bennett's vision and leadership, moving to a phase of action and impact, most importantly. So our Pillar 4 is, again, workforce synergy. And I won't read this in its entirety, but we're working to create workforce synergy among all of us here in this room. And our goal is to establish integration and collaboration among all of us. These are our objectives. I also won't read them in their totality, but what you see here on this slide is really about cross-sector collaboration, integration, communication. It's also about the unified vision that you're going to be seeing soon in the way of the North Star. It's also about increasing public awareness for these initiatives, as well as the resources that are available in our community to support the work that we're also passionate about. And then finally, one of our priorities or objectives is to utilize technology for our work. So our group met 3 times. And we boiled it down to really 3 priority activities that we would focus on. We like to say that having the North Star Initiative in our pillar kind of counts for 10 initiatives. So we have 12 total, but really we have 3. It's been our honor and our privilege to help steward this work and shepherd this work, but it is really the result of everyone who has come to the table over these last 6 months. So the 3 priority activities that we identified were, number 1, really looking at the landscape and cataloging the activities that already exist in our community. And then similarly, thinking about the gaps that are so evident that are holding back the impact and the outcomes that we're wanting to achieve. So Matt will soon share about that priority activity of cataloging existing activities. The second has to do with data, and every pillar has emphasized the importance of data and being data-driven. It's an imperative to the work that we're doing. So for our perspective with Pillar 4, Matt will take us through this, but we've looked at data mapping, data alignment, and data analysis. And then our third priority, as you already know, is the North Star. And we know that an effort like a North Star really provides direction, focus, and alignment. But what we committed to was to think big, to be bold, to be audacious, to move away from status quo. And so I hope that you'll see that as we get into the North Star. So I'm going to turn it over to my joined at the hip partner, Matt Stevens from the Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative, to take us through the first 2 activities.
All right. Hi, everyone. As Kayla mentioned, the first priority activity that we did with our group really was this cataloging of activities. Oh, sorry, I've got this. I'm doing this. Cataloging of our activities and our gaps. And so in our first conversation, with our synergy, we don't need to start from scratch. As Kayla mentioned, there's a lot of great work already happening, and we really just want to understand first, what are those current efforts that are happening in each of the priority areas that were identified, and making sure that people in our group are aware, one another are aware of what's happening, and then starting to have some really good conversations and thinking about what might be needed to better connect. Part of the activity in this as well, I think one thing that made our Catalyst team unique is that it kind of did reach into the other pillars. And so between Kayla and myself and members of our group, we tried to at least have one member of our group in the other pillar meetings as well, so that we could understand the conversations that were happening and witness firsthand kind of ways in which this synergy was already happening. So then, I'm going to talk more about this in the data portion, but as we started to think about what the North Star goal might look like, we really wanted to understand, what are the efforts that are existing at each step in a career pipeline? And so we sort of recreated the first mapping activity, but really thinking about, what's going to support someone to graduate high school? What's going to help someone to enroll in college, to graduate college, and ultimately to find that first really good job? And so being able, and this is really where the gaps came in, and you can see that on the slide. So the group was, in our discussion, really identified what's already happening, but if we think about specific industries, specific communities, what are those gaps or those things that could be needed to really strengthen the connections and ensure that the programs that exist really work to serve. So then the second priority area was really letting data guide our strategy. And so kind of to start this portion of the presentation, I'll have us revisit something that I shared at the December Workforce Synergy Summit. And really that grounding question that I presented when we first started thinking about the North Star goal. The Workforce Funders Collaborative has done a little bit of data analysis and identified, looking at the generation that's going to enter the workforce in the next decade, how do we ensure that they have access to quality jobs and the opportunity to stay rooted in their communities? And so over the past 6 months, our group used data a few different ways to really think through, what would it take to deliver, on this question? And so, I think the other groups have identified places where, there are some data needs, and there are going to need to be new ways to collect data and share data to really be able to answer these questions. But we didn't want to let current data limitations limit us from being able to really dig in and say, what can we learn with the data that we already have that can at least help us see what's possible and what some of those challenges are. So the first thing we did was that we looked at that education to employment pipeline. And so just looking at, rates, right? We could look and start to see to some degree, right? If 85% of our kids are graduating high school, and I won't read all the data points, right? But we get down to starting with 167,000, just about 20,000 will obtain that college level employment within 5 years. And that's about 12% of that full population with our current pipeline. And so then we looked at data from other states. If we were able to improve our rates in the pipeline, right, to what we see in what other states have seen, then what we might be able to expect. And so you can see that, if we were to really be able to invest in and find ways to solve these problems, we'd be able to increase that number there at the bottom of the pipeline up to 54,000. So going from about 12% of the population to about 32%. But then we really wanted to get into that living wage piece, right? So we started to look at, looking at data about what do we see in terms of median wages for folks in Hawaii currently who graduate high school, who enroll in college, who graduate college. And this was really the data analysis, I think, that really started to steer that North Star conversation and help us. And I'm really trying hard not to spoil, because we're going to unveil the full thing, but I want to show you just, how much data and thoughtful conversation went into thinking about what is the problem we're really trying to solve. And so there's a lot of data points on the screen, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but essentially what the analysis looked at, we looked at every state in the country, and we normalized the median wage based on the cost of living in those states. And so, each of these box and whisker plots sort of shows you across states in the country, what percentage of a living wage in that state would you expect to receive, be able to earn at different attainment levels. And you can see for less than a high school, for high school graduate, for some college, Hawaii is right there at the tail end of all 50 states. But what really kind of opened our eyes and I think shaped this conversation was when we look at the college degree. Not only are we 50th in the nation, we're actually what, from a statistical standpoint, is a structural outlier below that. And so what it showed us is that there's a real wage challenge here, that just getting more kids through the pipeline alone isn't necessarily going to solve this problem. And so I think what's really exciting about what we've heard from these other groups is that, the types of activities that these other pillar groups are identifying are exactly what we need to start to untangle this. And then above and beyond that, I think it's the identification of that North Star goal that's well articulated, that's really going to help us find those solutions. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Kayala to talk about how we develop that goal.
Thanks, Matt, for taking us through the data. And that is the data telling us the why. And so it's an important place to spend some time. And I'm so grateful to have a partner like Matt, because that's his swim lane for sure. So thank you, Matt. All righty. Priority 3, creating a North Star goal. We know, Tui alluded to it, North Stars are crucial for providing direction, focus, and alignment. They give us a clear, concise, and unifying roadmap and goal. They provide alignment and prioritization, which I am such a stickler about prioritization. They provide measurable progress, and they're bold and inspiring. And so one of the very first things that the working group did was to replace the terminology North Star with generational commitment. And I hope you'll agree that generational commitment is a promise, it's a pledge. These are Ken's words. And it's bold, and it speaks to our community that we are here for the long term, and we are here for the youth in every segment of our workforce population. What I want to do is provide a little bit of context and framing before I invite Bennett up to unveil the North Star goal. There were 5 critical meetings that a subgroup of you in the room came together and participated in. These state agencies that participated in this work include P20, the University of Hawaii, DOE, DLIR, and Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative, and DBET. There were others in the room. I represent the Chamber of Commerce, and we work very hard on leading sector partnerships in our state. We also had the Kosasa Foundation and other nonprofit philanthropic partners in the room. I also want to say that we were guided by our subject matter experts with National Governors Association to really help us look at what other states were doing in this space and then think bigger, bolder, and more audacious. So this group came together, as I mentioned, 5 times. And you can see here just a little summary of the path and the journey that we've been on. Our first meeting was in November of 2024. And that's where we really talked high level, philosophical. What did we as individual agencies and organizations believe in and want to make an imperative in this project? And you can see the four things here: living wage job creation, career pathway alignment, work-based learning, and ensuring equity and access. Our second meeting was actually when we were all together at the Synergy Summit in December. And it's at that meeting that we honed in a little sharper. We talked about the North Star needing to be people first and rooted in Hawaii. We also talked about needing to make sure we had clear, measurable outcomes, and that whatever we put out into the community was memorable. Then finally, we talked about this needing to be built for alignment and action. All of our individual organizations work so hard on their respective initiatives that whatever we created needed to be an umbrella that encompassed all of those individual activities. The last thing we needed was a whole nother initiative that stood alongside siloed initiatives. And so we were determined that this would be reflective of the individual organization's individual work. Think of that big umbrella, that big tent metaphor that some of you know I love. And then the third gathering was where we went a little deeper on data. What are the specifics? It's one thing to have a wonderful slogan or a moniker, but what really are the specifics that are under these words that are going to ensure outcomes and action? And what we decided was that it had to be multidimensional. Our North Star goal couldn't just be related to education. It needed to span the whole continuum, beginning with education, moving into economic development, and then most importantly, it had to include systemic structural change, because otherwise, what do we have? Sometimes the status quo. So that was a commitment that we made at the third meeting. At the fourth meeting, I think that this was a really pivotal meeting because this is where we changed our vernacular from North Star to generational commitment. And he'd be embarrassed if I said it, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Credit to Matt for first putting generational commitment in our ears. Thank you, Matt. We also were really intentional about our audience. Who are we talking about? Who are we here to serve? Who are we inclusive of? We also wanted to be very intentional about our swim lane. We got a little overwhelmed thinking about the barriers and the needs, and we found ourselves talking about housing and cost of living and wages, all of which are very important, but we reminded ourselves that this is the state workforce unified plan. And so our swim lane is workforce, and we know that there are on parallel paths really strong efforts led by the governor's people, as well as organizations like Holomua Collective, who are working on things like cost of living, housing, et cetera. And so we wanted to stay focused on workforce. And then again, generational commitment. And then our final meeting was where, that's also, I should say, the fourth meeting is where we got into some wordsmithing. And boy, what a process and exercise wordsmithing is. Like you could go on, into infinity. But it was a thoughtful process. It was a good consensus. And again, thanks to NGA for helping to lead that process. Our final meeting was really focused on the metrics. And when we think about this umbrella goal, what are the individual metrics that sit under this unified goal? So next, I am going to actually turn it over to Bennett. I'll come back after and provide a little more context and framing, but I want to hand the microphone over to Bennett for the big moment. Thank you for your leadership, Bennett.
I want to echo the sentiments expressed by Keala about NGA. So NGA gave the Workforce Development Council, one of 6 states in the country, a grant so that they can help in the implementation. And they were very instrumental in guiding us through the process of developing our generational commitment. I want to say mahalo to the people who were involved. This is not just one organization. It's really a collective. It was so inspiring to have this group of folks who are all equally committed to Hawaii and the values that we hold dear. So this is what we're going to see here, which is a collective effort. But before I do that, I want to just call attention to an inspiration that we had back in December in 2024, when we had Jeff Mikulina from Blue Planet Hawaii, who shared the vision for the energy sector and how they came about developing their North Star. And that particular, I guess, North Star was 100% renewable energy by 2045. And that they were able to codify, and now there's a concerted effort towards that goal. There, as I underscored earlier, a lot of the agencies, a lot of the organizations have been working within their own enclave in order to, push this agenda forward. But here is an opportunity to have this umbrella where people would still feel connected and yet can still continue to work in their universe, but still feel that they're working towards this bigger effort. We all aspire to be part of something bigger than ourselves, right? So here is our North Star. I'm going to read it. I'm going to share a little bit about the Venn diagram that was developed that perhaps could be the start of a marketing effort. But I just want to share with you that these are not just mere words. Every word was, like Gala said, wordsmithed. Is that a verb? Whatever, you know what I mean. But it really is a collaborative effort. And I said, what's the best way to unfold this? I thought about inviting Royal Hawaiian Band to kind of, and then I thought, oh, maybe some, local star to be, but in the end, simple is better, right? So here we are. This is Hawaii's generational commitment. By 2045, all people of Hawaii will have a path to a career that enables them to learn, work, and thrive in Hawaii and contribute to a vibrant local economy grounded in community values. Just pause for those who want to take a photo. This is the first time most folks who are not part of the team are seeing it. Okay, so you read the words. Learn, work, thrive. But can you see that in the middle, when you have all those 3, and Keala will do a better job in explaining this part, it's belong. That's what Hawaii is all about. We want to belong. We want to have a connection to this special place we call home. And with that, I'm going to now bring up Keala to explain the rest of the elements.
I agree. That deserves a round of applause. So what I want to do is invite you into the room for some of the discussions that took place to get us to this. So By 2045, we gave a lot of thought to what that date should be, and it also is the same as our friends in clean energy. But what the group decided was that that was a reasonable amount of time to accomplish all of the things that needed to be accomplished in order to deliver on this generational commitment. 20 years is also about a generation. And so it's a long-term commitment. It might seem a little far out there, but as you'll see in Matt's final part of the presentation, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So 2045. The second area that the group thought long about is all people of Hawaii. We began, to be honest, with the words Hawaii's young people, or the young people of Hawaii. But that was just one segment of the workforce. And so we moved away from young people and wanted to think about something more comprehensive. Then we moved to Kama'aina. But then again, we wanted to be inclusive of our friends and family, my kids who live on the mainland, who we want to get home. And so we realized that while Kama'aina felt good, it really wasn't the right word to reflect the comprehensiveness that we want this North Star to reflect. So we landed on all people of Hawaii. Then the words, a path to a career. This also was 3 words that we really spent a good amount of time on. We wanted to be inclusive of secondary and post-secondary. We wanted to be inclusive of non-degree pathways, of reskilling credentials. And so a path to a career looks very different for all of us. And we wanted to make sure that whatever falls under this generational commitment includes all of those varied paths. Live, work, and thrive. We were really, to be honest, excited when we landed on that because that is resonating as maybe the moniker, live, work, and thrive by 45. I didn't say it, but maybe you thought it. Something along those lines. So live, work, and thrive, again, is that full continuum that we want for our friends and family. We want them to live here, work here, and most importantly, thrive here. And then finally, contribute to a vibrant local economy grounded in community values. One of our core principles was we wanted to use as few words as possible. And so this felt like a lot of words to some of us, but at the end of the day, there was consensus that we needed to include these components in our generational commitment because a vibrant local economy grounded in community values is what we stand for. And so that's a little bit behind what went into these 5 important conversations. And I'll just close before I hand it over to Matt to talk about, what are some of the specifics? How are we going to really make sure we deliver on this generational commitment? And that is to just reintroduce the Venn diagram. Learn, work, thrive with belong in the middle. We're going to be relying on some experts in the branding and marketing space to help us turn this into something that can really resonate and be quickly understood by our community. There is a hope that we will bring in Olelo Hawaii, and you can see the corresponding words here, A'o, Hana, Ola, Pilipa'a. And while we know that learn, work, and thrive needs to be our primary way that we present this generational commitment, we know that there's also a place for Olelo Hawaii. So by the time the governor shares this in September, that work will be done. Our basic slides, they're beautiful, by the way, thank you, will be turned into more of a public awareness campaign. And so more to come. Lots of work to do between now and when we take this out of this room into our broader community. But you are the first to get a peek at it. And I'll turn it over to Matt to take us through some of the specifics.
Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we've structured the goal, because as Keala and Bennett both mentioned, there was a decent amount of wordsmithing. And I think the aha moment where we stopped trying to get every word into the goal is when we developed these impact buckets here. And so the idea is we have this umbrella goal, but there are going to be sub-metrics and sub-goals that we'll come up with to be able to understand, what are the things that we really need to affect to know, and how would we know, not just in 20 years, right, but how will we start to know in 1 year and 5 years that we're moving the needle in terms of how folks are learning, working, thriving, and belonging. And so the first bucket is around work-based access and infrastructure. And so that's really being able to understand the career pathways and understand how people are moving along those and along the lines of the data that I shared earlier. The second area really captures that economic development and opportunity, and really being able to make sure that we are able to measure and know if we're creating viable economic development. The third bucket is around underemployment and job quality. And so, I really think about this as we move forward as somewhat of an accountability engine, right? It allows us to really make sure we're maintaining that balance. Just creating jobs isn't necessarily mean we're hitting that goal, right? Just having any economic development doesn't mean that we're moving in the right direction. But how do we measure pathways, economic development, and really the creation and the ability to measure, are we creating quality jobs, not just statewide, right? But being able to understand that at the county level, at the community level, right? Because we know opportunity is different. And then finally, that fourth bucket is really that belong at the middle of the Venn diagram, and being able to understand and measure, do people really believe that there is opportunity as people are, planning their career and telling their kids, and setting goals and understanding, how can we start to understand that attitudes and hope is shifting, right? Because it's not just enough to change the infrastructure if people don't believe that there are opportunities and are making decisions to recognize that they can stay here. And so those are really our impact buckets. And then the next layer of this, and it's still a work in progress, we've got some work to do over the next few months, but we just want to highlight this to kind of better illustrate what we're thinking. Just got to take this with me so I can look here. And so these are beginning to think about what our leading metrics might look like under each of these buckets. And we, if you remember that first Venn diagram that Kayala showed that showed the different state agencies who participated in this, they each have their own workforce goals already. And so we made deliberate decisions for the first couple of bullets in each of these buckets, to identify metrics that are already being collected somewhere. And then as we sort of move down this list, what are the additional things that we're going to want to be able to measure? So it's important to know that, youth are completing work-based learning opportunities, that we're offering more paid internships year by year, that more students are attaining credentials. But as we start to see that economic development, how quickly are we able to create work-based learning opportunities that align with those sectors? And so thinking about those new metrics that are going to need to be developed to help us really understand the types of changes that need to happen. I'm not going to go through all the metrics, but really just wanted to lay this out to show you kind of the pattern we're thinking, this big umbrella goal that aligns us in where we want to be, the lanes that we're going to be working in, with the acknowledgement that there's obviously overlap, right, between these lanes, and that's where the metrics come in. And so we'll continue to work on those over the coming months, and look forward to sharing those as we continue to do that work. Pass it back to Bennett.
Wow, thank you, Matt. I think you've earned a 15-minute break. What do you think? Okay, so before we break though, I do want to remind people that the food cannot be brought in here. So please over there, network, talk amongst yourselves. And I do want to acknowledge the presence of Lynn Araki Regan, who's from the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, ASO, Administrative Services Office. Thank you. Okay, so we will come back at 10:50 with some Mentimeter and more interesting things to come. Aloha.
The video?
Yes. So we're also playing a video that you might be seeing on your social media feed. And it is for the American Job Centers. These are playing on TV and social media. Go ahead. I will make that. Yeah. It's actually yeah. So, Evan, do we want the QR code for the slides to download the slides? To download the slides. Yeah. Oh, we have it? I thought Angela did. The slide? Yeah.
See you later.
Yes, yes, because we had a change. That's what it was.
Remember me? Yeah.
Gosh, it's been way too long.
Company's 25 years old. But I went back to school to get my master's in HR. They wouldn't let me teach event management at university. So I'm on this path to workforce development for my colleagues in the event industry. They're too busy doing their jobs. Oh, no, I did do jobs. Yeah.
Because they're trying to do that as well.
All the audiovisual people, and they didn't have the succession. It's great. You like it?
You're not.
Thank you. Yeah,
I'm so glad.
no worries. I also did not want to like leave. I was like, oh God, I gotta go soon. I don't want to leave. I don't need a baby. I didn't want anybody to think that that means like you're not supporting them. Because of course, you are not. Yeah, I'm doing too. I think he has to stay later now or something. Something's happened with travel. Yeah. No, because he said that he might have to do something now. That might make him have to deviate his job in Austin. So because of that, there's a chance that he might actually be coming back late. So it'd be like a, it would be like a, you know, my concern was like how quick of the turnaround was. Yeah. Yeah, but if, yeah, no, I mean, we'll see when it is, right? But I think the other thing too is like, you know, if they're, even if it's the participation for now, like, you know,
Yeah.
virtually with them, you know, at least there's that engagement, but yeah.
Because of, yeah, the unveiling.
No. A lot of their question on the daily, we need to make sure we're all, like, hey, like, you know, with the same daily stuff, like, I'm gonna be like, hey, you know, if they wanna go up to unveil this, I was like, you know, like, we need to make sure we're all. So I'll just like give up like a, not to make it more like, I mean, the shit. We need to all come together.
I mean, okay.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yes, they're not. Like that. Like, which one's hardest to find? I think it's part of that. Not amazing. 2 years old, kind of crazy. And then like they're old enough to tell them understand. Not really, I was on our grade on they may have like I know. So sorry. That's what I said. Yeah. And I
The dinosaurs out there. We're related. My grandfather was Mormon's. My grandfather's stepbrother's son.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
But I didn't want I'll find out.
Welcome back. Welcome back. It's on? Yeah, okay. Welcome back, everybody. I have a high incentive for you to come back in. It's that this is the last time Dan's going to talk. So I figured that'll get people right in. Right. Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that. So thank you, Tui. I appreciate that. Right. Yeah, much appreciated. So welcome back, everybody. We wanted to get started with our, I think this is the final Mentimeter. I think this is the last one. But as people are starting to come back in, we want to take a look at this Mentimeter. We've given you a whole 15 minutes to think about that generational commitment that you just saw. And thanks to Bennett and her team for providing it on the card too. That's really nice, and be nice to hang up. I already know where I'm going to put mine in my workspace. But our first question here is, which part of that commitment resonates the most with you? And just as a reminder, it's your options here. It is a measurable long-term impact we're looking at. It is based on collective responsibility. It's everybody's responsibility to do this work. Alignment is a word that came up when we did the word cloud earlier, and here it is again, the alignment of education, work, and this time we've added in community. Education and the workforce don't exist separate from community. They are part of the community. The idea that we're building not just for today, but for the next generation. It's right there in the name, generational commitment. It's a commitment not just for people right now, but for the future as well. So we're seeing this, again, alignment. I know this is something we talk about a lot. My previous position when I worked with Steve and his team at Hawaii P20 was the state alignment director. That was my actual title. So working on alignment that has to do with ELA and math and science. I was working with content alignment, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more of the alignment from high school to the university. We're talking about alignment across the entire spectrum. So Not surprising that that one is so high. We hear that one a lot. And again, in second place there, that it's generational, again, not surprising to me at all. That's such a key component of what Hawaii is about and what the people who do this work are about. So it makes sense to me that that would be another one that's up there. Great. This next one, so we might have a hidden meaning or hidden agenda with this question, but we are interested, what role do you see yourself in fulfilling this commitment? Where do you see yourself as part of this generational commitment? And this is an open-ended question. Is that correct? It's open-ended? Yeah. So if you can go ahead and funding, I love that. Whoever put that one, thank you very much. Always happy to see that. Retiring, hang on, wait a minute. No one's allowed to retire before I do. So I would say Della put that there, but I'm not 100% sure. Our janitor has returned from our team. But we appreciate that. We appreciate that there are people on the front lines, people who are somewhat the face of something, but for every person you see in front, for every Dan who's talking right now, there's at least 30 people who are doing work, boots on the ground and cleaning up, that janitor role. So thank you for being there. Utility player, that was another one that was on our sports question from earlier this morning. So I like seeing that one too. We need lots of advocates, so I'm happy to see that one there. Everybody here, I hope you are an advocate for this and that you support this, even if your particular position doesn't allow you to do some of the things related to funding or related to training or relating to recruiting. We hope that you're an advocate. We hope that you support this and have that we can depend on you to get the word out and to let people know about these opportunities and where we're headed with this. Lots of good things here. Bennett, there's some things we haven't even thought of. So this is really good stuff as we start moving forward. A bridge builder, I love that one. We're constantly, that metaphor of bridging things and bringing people together. And the group that has been working up to this point on this, we need more bridge builders. We need more people to be working with us to leverage everybody in this room to make this successful. Great. So if you look at these 4 intentions that were part of what was presented earlier, what do you think is the most urgent? So you leave this event today at 12 noon. You can stay up until 1. And hey, this is serious. If you do get a parking ticket, just bring it to me and I'll take care of it. You can quote me on that because I will do that for you. But when you leave here today, what's the most important thing? What's the thing that you really want to dive into? And it looks like the thrive part. And again, to me, this makes sense. I'm part of these conversations frequently because of the work that I do. And that thrive part it comes up again and again. That's why I'm so glad it's part of the actual generational commitment. People bring that up again. We want people not just to be in Hawaii, not just to live in Hawaii, but to thrive in Hawaii. That's what we want. When I worked on the Good Jobs Hawaii grant, we would say that all the time. It's for people for Hawaii's businesses and Hawaii's residents to get good jobs in Hawaii that keep them in Hawaii. That's the goal of that particular grant. And I feel this generational commitment is very similar in those ways. We want to provide for the great people here to thrive so they stay here. But to Keala's point earlier, when she was talking about all people of Hawaii, that piece of wording, we know, we're not fooling ourselves, we know people leave. And we want them to come back because they see it as a place where they can thrive. And then in one word, and this is a word cloud again, how does the commitment, and I know you've only had about 15 minutes to process that commitment, but just kind of right now, how does it make you feel? Again, I love that the first word is hopeful, and then it got even bigger. So thank you for all the people who used hopeful there. Certainly, we are excited, those who have been working on it to this point, that it is inspiring hope in people. I like the idea too that it's focused, because that was very important to us as we were putting it together, because it is as you're working on these things, they are unwieldy. They're huge. And, you bring this many people together and this many people have lots and lots of great ideas. So it's big. But intentionally making it focused so it's something we can actually achieve. I like that you're excited. I love that you're energized because that's a Dan word. Dan likes energy. Steve, yes, we like that. And I was saying to people, you have no idea how exhausting it is to be me sometimes. So I get very excited about so many things. Yeah, so it's like, all my energy, all my excitement. So it's exciting to see it put into the word cloud up here. But again, inspired, hopeful, those are the ones that more people are putting in. So it's exciting to see those remain kind of the focus here of what you're feeling right now and when you leave here, how you're going to help us take those next steps. None? Is that the last one? Okay, great. Then I know we have our panel, our exciting panel. So it looks like everybody's back in and we're ready to move on to the panel.
One more time, Dan Durger. That's it, though. He has no other role after this. No more Dan. But don't forget, leave the lot by 1 o'clock. Okay, just making sure we get that out there. So at this juncture, we will hear some thoughts from our esteemed partners, very great group of people who operate in the workforce space, and they're going to share their insights about generational commitment. And here to facilitate the panel is Sophia Yeager. You met her earlier from the National Governors Association. Come on down, Sophia. Yeah, you can give her a round of applause.
I'll just welcome my panelists to come on up. Thanks, everyone, and great to hear some of the feedback. Again, with limited processing time, really glad to see some of the positive reactions to the generational commitment. As Kayala and others alluded to earlier, one of the intentions with the generational commitment was for it to be an umbrella that you all could see your individual missions and strategic goals reflected in so that they can all kind of be rowing in the same direction. So we wanted to bring in a couple folks who have been kind of at the table in developing the generational commitment to talk about how they see their work reflected in that generational commitment for 2045. So with me, we have folks who I'm sure need no introduction, but we have Steve Schatz with Hawaii P20, Tammy Chun with the Department of Education, Christine Boley from the UH system, and then Kathy Matayoshi, who is representing the Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative. So would love to turn it over to all of you to kind of briefly share how you see your organization's missions reflected in the generational commitment. So
I have the mic, so I'll get started. So for the Department of Education, I want to put this into context. All of you got this card, and so I reorganized what I thought I would say today based on the card. By 2045, so that's 20 years from now. So to put that into context for all of us, our entering kindergarteners who are 5 years old will be 25 years old in 2045. And our new high school graduates, Steve Schatz has 2 who just graduated. But in 2045, they will be 38 years old. And then we will all be, okay. So something that strikes me about this is putting into the context what it means and how many students young people are we talking about? Because the Department of Education, as you know, is responsible for education from K to 12. So when young people are ages 5 to about 18, roughly. Over the course of the next 20 years, that represents probably about 400,000 individuals. So everyone enrolled now, plus additional entering cohorts of kindergartners. So that's quite a lot. And one of the things that the Department of Education is working on right now is revisiting what's called the vision of a Hawaii public high school graduate. So it's not about what high schools do. This is about what the entire public education system does in terms of preparing our young people for the future. And we are revisiting that. It's been probably about 15 to 20 years since that was updated. And we also are looking to operationalize that with Superintendent Hayashi's vision for our graduates to be globally competitive and locally committed. So we are in the middle of a process of engaging stakeholders. We've been out at Board of Education community meetings, so maybe some of you have heard about this or contributed in some way. We're going to continue a process into the fall. That'll conclude at some point in the next school year with a revision of a Board of Education policy related to the vision of the graduate. And also it will be the umbrella for work such as revising our high school graduation requirements for high school diplomas. So really setting a structure for what many of the young people who will be in school and become 25 to 38-year-olds in 2045. One of the things that we did in the process of revisiting the vision is talking with our students. So some of you may have heard leaders from the Department of Education talking about this, but it was really sobering and really relevant to this generational commitment. So I'm going to share it with you. We met with our student leaders in our state student council. So these are leaders from our high schools. 30 were at the focus group, and they're juniors or seniors typically in high school. When asked, when you're 40 years old, but putting into context, high school seniors are going to be 38. So it's kind of about the right age for them. When you are 40 years old, once they can get over thinking that's really old, the question is, do you expect to be living in Hawaii when you are 40 years old? And of the 30, only 3 said yes. Like really sobering. And we have repeated this exercise with different groups, and the numbers will shift a little, but the general bottom line is the same, that our young people are unsure or don't think that they'll all be here in the future. So when asked about why they don't see their future in Hawaii, they're talking about things that we here have been talking about today. They don't see the jobs that they're interested in. Sometimes it's because they don't currently exist in Hawaii. Sometimes it's because they don't have the information about what's available. They don't, they're concerned about the cost of living and the cost of housing. So they're internalizing and really seeing the stress and hearing the discussions that the adults are having. They are also, this is something for us to think about too. They have told us that the messages they're getting at school, at home, in the community is that success means moving away. That's not just going to college on the mainland. That's not a college on the mainland. That's your success means being away. And so that is something that this is more than a Department of Education issue. This is a community issue. So what I really like about the generational commitment is it really looks at what we all need to do to be able to see a future in Hawaii, not just for the young people, but also for ourselves, because we really do count on our young people being able to be here. My son is 19. I want him to see a future for himself here, for me personally, but also for what it means for our community. So when we asked the 3 students who said that they plan to be here when they're 40, they said consistently across the 3 that Hawaii is their home and they have a commitment to this place. And in spite of all the challenges and messages that they're getting, that they are committed to finding a way to make it work. And so that's really encouraging, that when they can see a kuleana for themselves here and a personal commitment that they can commit themselves to being here. But that is putting a really heavy burden on young people to make a decision and feel like the only way to make it is to sacrifice and to fight the messages that they're being given about what success means and what the opportunities are for them. So I say all of that not to be pessimistic, but to ground us not just in what we think is needed, but when we listen to our young people who really will make up the bulk of the workforce, at least half of the workforce that's in the by 2045 group. There's a commitment we're making to them and the future generations that we have a lot of work to do to be able to, for them not just to have the skills, but to see the future for themselves here. So that said, I just want to make a couple more comments from a Department of Education perspective here. One of the other pieces of feedback that we got during our community engagement around the vision of the graduate was that we started out with a statement said that the Department of Education will. And some parents and community members came to the meetings and said, this is not just about what the Department of Education is going to do. What are we all going to do together? This is a collective responsibility of families, community, employers, other partners as well. So we appreciate that. We are all in this together, because what is available to young people in terms of what success looks like, what the jobs they're aspiring to, help motivate them for seeing relevance in their study, to help them shape their purpose, and to shape what their plans are for the future. So I could talk for hours. I have 3 minutes, which I've probably already used, but I really just want to say that we are really motivated to have our young people see a place for themselves in Hawaii and to be ready for those challenges, both so that they can have an economic future, but also so they're contributing to solutions for our community and being community contributors. Superintendent Hayashi has a theme, it's Ne'epapa. So how do we, and the vision or the visual for Ne'epapa is like a school of fish moving together in spite of challenges that come. You know, big fish comes and then the little fish break up and regroup and keep moving forward together. So we want to continue to partner with all of you. We have some of our Department of Education workforce leaders here. One Kaneshiro, who was up here earlier. I saw Troy Sueoka. Please connect with them. We are wanting to make sure that our students have opportunities to experience different kinds of jobs and careers and opportunities in Hawaii. We also would like our educators, or need our educators, to have experiences in the workforce, in today's workforce, to see what the jobs look like, so because they're influencers for our, not only on the curriculum, but influencers and mentors for our students in schools. So what they know matters, and what they share matters a lot. So we continue to want to partner with all of you and look forward to further conversations.
Thank you, Tammy. I was involved in almost all of the conversations leading up to this, and it really, the process really resonated with me personally. So I come from poverty. I was a first-generation college student, and this was the promise of higher education. This is the promise of the industry in which I work, right? You do good, you work hard, you study what you love, you find your passion, and it will all work out. The reality is that way too many of our graduates, it's not working out for them, right? They are waitresses, they are retail associates. They, like me, are slinging drinks and tacos at Taco Bell, right? After getting our college degrees. They are not in college level jobs, and the longer they are not in college level jobs, the more difficult it is for them to get into a college level job. At the same time, right, we are hearing from employers that our graduates, with some notable exceptions, are not ready for the workforce. They are desperate for talent that are ready to be dropped into the available jobs. And so there's a fundamental mismatch, right, between what we are doing with all of our good intentions, and yes, including our pockets of excellence, and the reality of the workforce opportunities that are available to members of our community, and in particular to UH grads, right, who are my primary constituency. It's sobering to be in these conversations and to realize how wicked the problem is, right? It is a matter of creating new jobs, right? Of being able to remove the hurdles so that our young people are adult learners who have amazing ideas and incredible drive, right, to make a difference in their community, to market new products, to pursue their passion, you know, to have a career that allows them to fulfill their dreams, right? We are so good at putting hurdles in their way. And so, you know, at the same time, the reality is that we tell kids coming to any of our UH campuses, you know, you can have a fantastic career. You just need to find the right path. You need to get through. We will help you get through, and then good luck, right? We send them out into the workforce. There are many, many occupations that are directly aligned to training programs. I'm not worried about the accounting majors, the engineers, the nurses, the kids lucky enough to go to JAPSOM. I'm not worried about their kids. The kids who I am worried about, the adult learners who I am worried about, are the philosophy, right? The Hawaiian studies, the anthropology, the psychology majors who don't go on to get a PhD, right? The art history majors, the Mandarin majors, right? Where are those kids working? What are their career paths? Who are the industry partners, right, for them? Faculty don't know, right, what jobs their graduates are getting. Kids don't know if there are any jobs that are going to use those skills that they're getting. And so there are approaches that UH can take systemically to better prepare all of our graduates, regardless of whether they're in a program like philosophy. I was a philosophy major, so I had no idea workforce development was an option. And nursing majors, and art history majors, and HVAC technician majors, et cetera, so that they are better ready for the jobs of today. They can help create the jobs of tomorrow and be our allies, right? Instead of passive recipients of whatever efforts we're able to achieve with economic diversification, right? With providing different kinds of jobs for them. And so those big systemic changes in embedding career readiness, right? Embedding career exposure, career engagement, and the things we know we need to do for every student to help them launch a career, not just fall back on the job that they've been working part-time, right, while getting through school. And those are the kinds of big, bold changes to the way that we deliver higher education that is going to help Hawaii get off of that podium of having highest in the nation underemployment. 57% of our grads 5 years post-graduation are not in a college level job still. And every day that passes that they're not in a college level job means that they are less and less able to get an interview for a college level job. That's what keeps me up at night, right? That one statistic, thanks Matt, for all the nightmares, that is what I want to change, right? I want to make this a promise where higher education is a productive partner, where our graduates are able to live, learn, work, and thrive in Hawaii 20 years from now.
That was awesome. And I think it highlights one of the things that the Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative was created for, and that is everyone is working so hard in their silo, in their area. But if we don't collaborate and start to work together to have collectively greater impact, then we're going to keep getting the results that we have. And so this North Star, this generational commitment is, to me, the piece that brings us together around some common goals, some common metrics. We can each continue to work on our areas, but this is key. I want to explain a little bit about the Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative, because we're probably the one that no one else has heard about as much. We're a group of 9 member philanthropy organizations right now, came together 3 years ago or 4 years ago, because we all saw within our original, well, I'm not in a foundation anymore, but in those foundations that there were pockets of excellent work, but there was not communication between those pockets and not the ability to sustain that effort if you're working by yourself. And so we formed that collaborative with the idea that working together is better than working alone. And this generational commitment, to me, has so many of the elements of that collaboration. We talk all the time about all people, rural communities, poverty, communities in poverty, neighbor island communities. We're talking about people that often are not remembered. When we see those big Oahu statistics, how many kids are in Ka'u are having a work-based learning opportunity? Just gotta say, the opportunities are different. So that language of all people resonates. The pathway thing, if you look at the job analysis that Matt did, an entry-level job is not gonna have you thrive. And sometimes a second job doesn't have you thrive either. So the message is you start somewhere, but there's a pathway forward. There's a future for you. And the workforce funders are really focused on not just that first job, not just a second job, but continue to support communities as their individuals seek something better for themselves and their families. So that pathway piece is important. And then this vibrant community, we did some focus groups. We funded some focus group work with young people. And the most important thing for them in a good job is not necessarily a higher wage. A lot of it was about meaningful work, about contributing to their families, about being able to stay in their communities, having enough money to meet their expenses, but not meet an arbitrary salary threshold. It was really a lot about who we are as a community that formed their value system. And so when we talk about contributing to a vibrant local economy grounded in community values, that's setting us in a different framework, a different way of thinking about the kinds of jobs, the kinds of economy that we want to see for our children and the kinds of places they want to work, because it's got to be meaningful for this upcoming generation. And I think really for everybody in Hawaii. So that's how the workforce funders, I think we all feel very strongly aligned and very supportive of this generational commitment. And it is, I don't want to say it again because we said it so many times, but it's going to take a village. It's going to take a state. Thank you.
Steve, as you're sharing your reflections about how P20 fits in, I would love for you to kind of hone in on the work-based learning component, because we saw that that's a big kind of underpinning, especially of the learn component of the generational commitment. So talk a little bit about how P20's existing goals and efforts kind of fit into the generational commitment.
Sure. First, I'll just say P20 is an organization that tries to coordinate and align between the educational entities in the state and align with workforce needs. We sit at the University of Hawaii, but we sort of a neutral intermediary / facilitator of a lot of the work. One thing I'll say that makes me really optimistic is that the formal plans of each of our partners are looking way different than they did 10 years ago, right? Like the University of Hawaii strategic plan has a workforce initiative and a workforce shop, right? With actual human beings doing this work, which is new. And the same goes for the DOE's strategic plan, which like now there's a shop in the Department of Education dedicated to workforce and workforce alignment. Those are new things. And then there are new metrics within those plans that are like, so that's a commitment, not only a plan, but a way to measure success on that. Same thing with what's happening today with our generational commitment, a plan, but also a way to measure it, hold ourselves accountable. So to me, like the formality, and even for us, we run the state's career and technical education programs, and we're using our plan, the state's collective plan, differently than we have before. So we have plans, we have metrics. Now we need action, right? And for me, that usually takes the form of resources, right? Like, are we looking at the way we're spending our money differently? And I can attest that that's starting to happen. The Workforce Funders Collaborative existence is a new kind of way to look at education from the philanthropic lens. The way that Bennett is looking at using some of the WIOA monies is different than what we've done in the past. The way we are looking at using our federal Perkins money is different than what we've done in the past. So we've taken these plans and the metrics, and now stuff's starting to actually happen, and we're putting money behind it. That's sort of the beginning. Now we got to figure out whether it's actually making an impact. We got to measure it, and we got to hold ourselves accountable for whether or not we're making progress on our own commitments. One of the things that we've done in partnership with philanthropy and with the DOE is expand work-based learning opportunities across the state, mostly for high schools and middle schools, but not exclusively. So the idea of work-based learning is having kids experience some degree of what the working world is like. Could be anything from a really light touch, like a career fair, to an internship or an apprenticeship. Obviously, the ideal is something more on this side of the spectrum. We started mostly on Oahu. We've since collectively expanded to Maui, Kauai, Big Island very recently. And so now really every corner of the state should have a work-based learning entity who can facilitate getting high school kids, middle school kids, some connection with the work world. And that's super exciting. This year, this legislative session, there was an appropriation made to the DOE. So now there's money within the DOE to help kind of sustain this effort going forward. So to me, that's a really exciting aspect of this. I will say one of the metrics that Matt was sharing earlier was, like, I don't think we talked about work-based learning, so the degree to which we're doing work-based learning in alignment with workforce development and economic development needs. We were simply saying, let's get kids opportunities, but we weren't really picking particular entities or particular industries, right? So if we want more healthcare workers, more teachers, more IT, more skilled trades, all of which are really good industries to be able to live, work, and thrive here, there's some effort to be done in work-based learning in K-12 and in higher ed to say, let's put our money where our mouth is to, to stoke the fire a little bit in those particular industries and not be so neutral. I'll say one more thing about P20. We used to have a goal called 55 by 25. Some of you may know what it was, but it was this goal that we would have 55% of working age adults with a degree, a college degree, by the year 2025. It's 2025. We didn't make it. We got kind of close. But our new goal is very aligned with this generational commitment, which is Hawaii graduates for Hawaii's future. So this idea that we want graduates not only to shape the future, but to have a future here in Hawaii. And again, like what Dan was saying with the good jobs work, a lot of us have very similar ideas about what we're trying to accomplish. We want to educate and empower our kids, and we envision a world in which they have the opportunity to stay at home, thrive, create jobs, make a living, and make this place even better than it is.
It's great. I love to hear how your existing efforts align, but how the generational commitment is also making you think a little bit differently about what the future looks like for some of P20's goals and initiatives. Christine, I want to go back to you quickly to talk a little bit about not only the alignment of career pathways with in-demand industries, but also with quality jobs. I know you've been doing a lot of thinking about that. So I would love to hear your thoughts about how quality kind of fits into this generational commitment.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, quality jobs are going to be very different, right? As Kathy said, it's much bigger than a paycheck. A paycheck it is foundational, right? A good paycheck to be able to stay here, and, not be subject to many of the stresses, right? That Hawaii Workforce Funders Collaborative's recent From Crisis to Opportunity report underlie, many of our wicked challenges. Getting kids into good jobs, or getting, adult learners into good jobs, there are kind of 5 big efforts, right? That are fundamental to how I am thinking about redefining workforce development for the UH system as a system. And mind you, each one of these are in and of themselves incredibly big, complicated, wicked problems. But that's also what makes this work so fun and so meaningful, right? For me. So first is making sure that learners, whether they're recent high school grads or a 45-year-old who just lost their job to an AI bot, right, has the ability to move in and out of the UH system seamlessly without losing credits, right? That is not the reality right now. You go for a short-term non-credit training, and then you come back for a certificate, and oh, sorry, you have to start over. And then you want to turn that into an associate's degree, and oh, sorry, you have to go back and do 31 credits of gen ed before you can do that. And then you want to get a bachelor's degree, and some of your credits are going to transfer here, but they don't transfer there, et cetera. So this is not how a higher education system should work for our state, right? That's big challenge number 1. Number 2, align training and degree programs with workforce needs through greater and broader coordination with public and private sector employers, right? And I'm thinking both in terms of workforce shortages, right? And the jobs of the future, not for the future, but also in terms of transferable skills. What are the AI skills that kids in our programs now are going to need in whatever field they go into, right? And that is a very complicated question. And then we think about communication, we think about critical thinking, we think about problem solving, entrepreneurship, innovation, et cetera. 3, embed career readiness into every student's journey early and often. That's a fun one. Number 4 is all about data, right? I have access to lots of data, right? My counterparts at the CCs have access to lots of data. The folks who need the data don't have access to it, right? That's students, that's potential students, that's faculty, right? That's members of the community. So when my 12-year-old says, I want to be an aeronautical engineer, I say, awesome. But what does that mean, right? Or do we Google aeronautical engineering programs? Do we look at, I don't know, NASA or SpaceX job opportunities and try to figure out how we can get her prepared to apply successfully for a job like that? I don't know what that career path might look like, and what training it might entail, and what skills are not explicitly addressed in an academic program that she will need, right, to successfully apply for an aeronautical engineering position. That's data that we need to make available to everyone. And then the last one is increasing entrepreneurship, innovation, continuing education opportunities, micro-credentials, industry-recognized credentials, et cetera, so that our alumni can contribute to economic diversification and creating the jobs of the future.
That's great. I think really well aligned with the work and thrive components of the generational commitment. I know we could go on all afternoon with this conversation, but we are on limited time. So in closing, I would love to kind of turn back to this notion of belonging that kind of sits in the middle of that Venn diagram of learn, work, and thrive. And so maybe rapid fire 30-second reflections from each of you on kind of what belonging means to you in the context of this generational commitment. We'll start with Kathy and come down.
How come I ended up with that? To me, the belonging is a sense that you're connected to your community and you're contributing and you're learning. So if you want to just that quick one, can I just do one little side note? Just because
like 10 more seconds.
Because UHERO just came out, I just want to do a shout out because UHERO just came out with a study on the Good Jobs Initiative, some preliminary data, and it shows that the work you are all doing is having an impact. The participants who completed had higher wages. They had those who shifted sectors actually showed significant improvements, increases in their salaries. So that's the kind of data work that we're talking about, where you can actually track preliminary data and then you kind of gain some energy because you're actually seeing lives impacted by the kind of opportunities that we are working to make available to everyone in this community. And that for me, when you start including everyone, that's kind of belonging, right? I kind of tried to tie that back in.
For me, belonging means that whatever your talent is, whatever your passion is, you see a way to help your community, to help your family, right? To help the INA, right? You find ways to use your talent to be able to improve, right? That's belonging. It means that whatever I do, I can use that to help the place where I live.
So from a Department of Education perspective, belong is really important to the work that we do to helping make our students, our employees, our parents, our community, our employer partners feel like they belong and are a part of what's happening. Some of you may be familiar with Naho Pina'o. It's our Hawaiian-based values for the Department of Education. The acrostic for the values is breadth, belonging, responsibility, excellence, aloha, total sense of well-being, and Hawaii. So but the first is B, which is belonging. So I think as you, it's something really common and foundational to success of our students and our organization in terms of helping our students to learn.
Excuse me. And since I was pretty optimistic my first time around, I'm going to be glass half empty this time. The practicality of living in Hawaii is that it's super expensive. And so the aspiration of that Venn diagram of live, work, and thrive doesn't work if you can't make it work monetarily, right? So the thrive part, like some of us can thrive but that's because I have a home and I have a good job, right? And so like we have to be aware that this is, for some people, what we're trying to do is we have to be somewhat practical about this. And that means thinking about affordability. That means thinking about which jobs are more likely to help young people stay home. I always say we always used to ask kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? I think we should also ask them where they want to live as part of that, because if they want to live here, then maybe the list of jobs that we should start coaching them towards is a different list. Entrepreneurship sort of opens that list a bit more, but I want to sort of bring it back to the practical, which is the economic realities of Hawaii are super challenging, and thriving is difficult if you don't make enough money.
I appreciate that. I think that's a good call to action for everyone here in the room today. Please join me in thanking our panelists for their insights. I'll hand it back to the lady in charge.
Yeah. So you heard us unveil the generational commitment. You heard it from our partners. Now, what's next? It's an inevitable question. So Matt and I will do a tag team to talk about no wonder. Okay. So for the Thriller Catalyst team, they've been meeting, but at some point we need to align. We can't have very divergent goals. So we need at some point to distill the efforts that you're making so that then they would align to our generational commitment. So all focus, all initiatives, all roads will need to lead to that generational. So we've seen this timeline in the past. So July and September, but there's a lot of things that need to happen in December. So I wanted, for clarity's sake, I want to make sure we understand what it needs to be done from preview, which is today, to public launch. So we start with here. I think the next step is to enlist the support of some experts in the design team. Again, work, learn, work, thrive, and belong is something that we thought might be a good idea, but who knows? You know, the experts will have to say in that. And then we need to start aligning, talking to the power, the 12. Oh, sorry. That would help. So aligning and communicating with internal and external stakeholders to make sure that when the governor rolls it out, that's not the first time they're going to hear about it. We want to make sure we have those conversations. And of course, in working with the policy team, we want to make sure that they're synced with us. And so when the governor proclaims it for September, which is Workforce Development Month, we're all aligned. So that's the next milestone, which is September. We don't have a date yet. And then what happens is we're doing some kind of a community roll-up. What the details are, it still needs to be flushed out. And of course, if there are changes as born from the data that we need to flush out, we need to be able to identify what those are, because that would tee us off to any initiatives that needs policy change might have to go through the legislature or some other entity. But we also need to identify, and that's one of the things that we're very mindful about, funding. So it's not just government, it's not just philanthropy, but there may be other creative ways of being able to find funding. And of course, October, November, December, we're hoping to have conversations about any policy action that might happen because, of course, January, that's when the legislature starts. Matt, go ahead for your data.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you want to go straight into this?
Oh, I could talk about data as
The
well.
data.
Yeah, yeah. So, sorry about that. So as I mentioned before, you know, we've started to have those conversations around what those leading metrics are going to be, and that'll be work that continues alongside a lot of this. We've started with a data mapping exercise to really understand what metrics could we measure on day one, and we want to have that mix. But then we want to start having those conversations around what additional information are we going to need to know to really be able to measure those kind of cross impact area metrics. And so the Pillar 4 Catalyst Group will continue to meet probably a subset as somewhat of a data working group. And so just an open invitation, if you are a data stakeholder within your agency and that's a conversation that you'd be interested in being a part of, we'll share my contact information as a follow-up, but it'd be great to have you as a part of that conversation. So then the next step that I'm going to talk about, kind of pivoting a little bit, we teed this up at the December Workforce Synergy Summit. But today, we're really excited to share with you all the Workforce Funding Review Report that the Workforce Funders Collaborative has funded over the past year and really partnered on with the Workforce Development Council to create. So this is a screenshot of what the last version of this report looked like. Really, why are we doing this report right now? You know, it was identified during the State Unified Plan that there was a need to update this report because it hadn't been run since 2018. And since then, we know that the landscape has shifted dramatically, right? There's been changes in our economy, state priorities, obviously some federal funding shifts that have even happened since we did this report, and also just the longer term effects of the pandemic. And so with these reshaped funding streams and service needs, but then also thinking about the North Star goal, right? If we are thinking about how we work differently, then we want to understand the funds that are available and the way we've been working independently and being able to have a document that allows us to think about how we braid funding, how we think about using those dollars in different ways to be able to be a catalyst, right, to help us accomplish that generational commitment. And so, as I mentioned, the Funders Collaborative partnered with the WDC, and we worked with a consultant, SR Partners, to really update this report and create that clear picture of the current investments coming into the state. And so, as we dug into this report, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a slide or two, we did run into some of the data limitations, right? It's really hard to report on a lot of these things with the data that's available right now. And so a large part of this work was really collected through a survey to all of the state agencies and many nonprofit organizations in the room. So I just want to pause before we reveal the report and make a big thank you to anyone in the room who responded to that survey and provided some pretty detailed funding information about your workforce development funding. All right, so don't feel like you have to grab this QR code on this slide. I'm going to make sure it stays up on the coming slides. I'm just going to run through the report at a high level just to show you the types of information that we are making available. And really, as we talk about this and as you access the report and look at it, think about that generational commitment and think about how thinking about our funding differently, how we can use this document to really think about new ways to collaborate, to really come around the people we're trying to serve, right? Rather than just those individual programs. So the first thing is really looking at the federal workforce funding that's available. And so we lift up that, there's $1.3 billion worth of workforce development funding that came into our state in 2023. And we've got that broken out by agency and where that funding went. Then we really want to illustrate that there are different ways in which this funding is being used, right? And have been able to quantify, what percentage of this went to education, what's dedicated to job training, support services, work-based learning, so that as we start to baseline our metrics, right, we can better understand where is there funding that's being used, where are there places that funding could be used differently, to better support with, for instance, support services or employment business services, and where are there gaps in funding where that federal funding and the state funding isn't covering it, and what are those needs? And that's places where the Funders Collaborative, is excited to bring philanthropy to the table and understand where those places are where we need additional funding to make sure that we have what we need as we progress on this generational commitment. And then we really dig into that workforce funding that's coming to our state agencies. And so I won't go into all the details, but as you go through this, you can see that DLIR, receiving a lot of those federal funds. We see 45 million, but want to disclaim, right, obviously 27.7 million of that is a multi-year grant that came through in 2023. And so, illustrating some of the challenges of kind of having apples to apples data when there's different funding levels. But we think that this provides a really great baseline to be able to start these conversations and understand where funds are currently flowing. And then you can see by the color-coded boxes, circles here, the types of themes and ways in which these funds can be used. And it's a little bit cut off here by the screen, but at the bottom we've got a list of the nonprofit organizations. And this is by no means exhaustive of all of the nonprofit organizations in our state doing great work and receiving funding, but just those that very, were gracious with your time and filled out and responded to our survey. And then this is just a little bit of a snippet, but the last 2 pages of this report are kind of what we're calling our Venn diagram section. And really the goal of this section is to show where collaboration is already happening and to allow us to see by theme who are the entities that are doing work in each of these themes for different populations. So for instance, the first one you'll see when you look at the full report is, let's look at programs that are only serving adults. And we look at education, we look at work-based learning, we look at all the different themes, and each circle shows us an entity, the amount of funding, and the specific populations that are actually being served. We know a lot of the federal WIOA dollars, some are for youth, some are for adults, some focus on the unemployed specifically, some are focused for seniors, And so it really gives a landscape map, and we can hope that using that visually will really allow us to start some great conversations around how we can collaborate and where funding is needed. So what we found, when you dig into it, like I said, there's over $1 billion of federal workforce funding that came into our state in 2023. Those most significant categories were support services with nearly 600 million, work-based learning with almost half a billion, and education with 86 million. And then, as I mentioned, there are a wide range of populations that have dedicated funding sources, including the youth, unemployed, justice involved, Native Hawaiians, the houseless, and more. And so, as I mentioned, as we dug into this, there were a lot of challenges with the data. I think we put the disclaimers in the report, but we really don't want the search for perfect data to stand in the way from us being able to learn from what we know already. And so one of the challenges, that there really isn't a standard definition of workforce development, and specifically within a lot of the state accounting systems, there wasn't an accounting code specific to workforce development, which made we had to get a little bit creative in how we found this information. And so one recommendation would be to, updates to our accounting systems to be able to help us understand how we could get this data better. Similarly, there are some differences between federal, state, and county funding systems, making it a little challenging to make those comparisons. And then not all of our programs obviously were captured due to some of those data limitations and survey responses. But as I said, I don't think that in any way takes away from the value of this report. And so also just wanted to talk with those challenges, 3 opportunities. As Christine Sakuda mentioned earlier, there was a bill passed in this past legislative session, really creating a data governance working group that I think could be a great opportunity to improve access to state data, both funding data, outcomes data, and otherwise, which will help make future versions of this funding report more robust. Continuing to get some investments in our own longitudinal and our agency connected data systems. There's a lot of national conversations about ways in which those WIOA funds can be used for those technical investments. And then finally, I mentioned this already, but just being able to align our accounting systems so that when we do these types of reports in the future, we can really have that clearer sense for where dollars are flowing and how that can support the great metrics we're going to be seeing in the programs as we move forward with this generational commitment. And so, this is just 1 year's worth of data from 2023, and we really see this as a starting point. And so would encourage you, really the call to action is that we hope that folks in the room will use this report to spark statewide dialogues on those gaps and on those opportunities, to advocate for better use of our workforce dollars as we identify these things that we want to invest in, right, for a generational commitment. And we hope it can inform the 2025 strategy and future funding priorities. So invite you all to check out the report and reach out if you have any questions. I'm going to hand it back to Bennett.
Thank you, Matt. If you know Matt, he is in his element when talking about data. So, thank you. Okay, so just so you know, for those of you who were taking pictures throughout this morning, the slides will be on the Workforce Development Council website, and it's under Synergy Summit, so pick it up there. The report will be on the collaborative website as of 11:30, right? You said? Today. Yeah, it's up already. Okay, so feel free to download and, avail yourself of the resources. So as we're coming to a close, the one word that comes to mind when I see that generational commitment is hope. I think of my children and my grandchildren, and like you, there's a tug in my heart, right? That there's a sense of wanting to make sure they have a bright future, have a sense of belonging, that aloha that we talk about and feel. So I think it's just apt, it's right to close this session, this summit, by hearing from our next generation, a young voice, one who represents the future that we talked about, but also the present. Angela Chalk is our Hele Imua intern since early June, and she's been a joyful and dynamic presence in our team. As an intern, she has brought fresh energy, insight, and a quiet confidence. She did all the slides, by the way. Just give her a round of applause for that. It is with great pride and warmth that I invite Angela to share her thoughts as a voice of Hawaii's future and a reminder of why we do this work.
Thank you so much. Set this up. Okay. Aloha mai kako. My name is Angela Chalk. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to share just a little bit of my perspective on workforce development as Kanaka Uivi and also as part of the rising generation entering Hawaii's workforce. I'm here today not just to tell my story, but to share what it means when workforce development works, when it invests in people like me and my family. To give you all some context about who I am, I want to start off with where I come from. My parents are Rebecca and Thomas Chalk, and yes, the Thomas Chalk right here. Hi, Dad. I'm the middle of 5 kids, and I'm a proud auntie to 3 nephews and 2 nieces. I was born in Utah and was raised there until I was 13, when we were able to move to Hawaii, and in my dad's case, move back home. We've been lucky to find success in this process. Kama'aina and Kanaka returning to the islands after a long time away isn't a common story, but it's a happy one. And although it was my dad's childhood home, making Hawaii my home was a different process for me. It was hard to reconnect after having spent my whole life on the continent, disconnected from the aina, the mana of this place. Fortunately, I attended high school at Kamehameha Kapalama, where I learned what it meant to belong here. I was given kuleana to be a servant leader to my community. I was taught the culture, language, history, and I was given tools for professional and educational success in the future. This led me to believe that it is never too late for someone to come back and thrive in these islands, and especially never too late for a Kanaka Uivi, a Native Hawaiian. When I graduated high school in 2021, I returned to Utah to attend BYU, which is in the same city I grew up in. I completed 3 semesters and changed my major 3 times in that span of time, from pre-music to economics to accounting and finally to sociology. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, so don't ask. My career path has so far, thankfully, been very flexible, as to allow me to discover my passions over time through trial and error. And then in 2022, I took a break from school to serve an LDS mission for 18 months in West Texas and East New Mexico and returned to school in 2024. So I hope that gave an adequate background as to why I feel I have a unique yet important perspective on the things we have learned together today. So how did I get here speaking to you now? Most summers since graduating, I stayed in Utah to work rather than come to Oahu to come home for the summer, because it made more sense financially and socially. But this year I felt a strong spiritual pull to return. Lots of things didn't make sense about it, but I trusted my na'au, my intuition, and made plans to return. During my job search, my dad informed me of the Hele Imua program. In the end, this program, funded by the state legislature and championed by Senator Donovan De La Cruz, is the only thing that made it financially and professionally feasible for me to return. I'm especially blessed to have been placed with the Workforce Development Council as mentored by Bennett, Evan, and Kelly. My experience so far has gone beyond my expectations for my personal and professional growth. I begin to understand where that spiritual pull to return came from. I was truly meant to be here this summer. Plus, working in an office so close to my dad means I get free lunches. He won't admit it, I am his favorite child. But truly, it has been such a blessing in so many ways. I have been given a front row seat on how state level efforts are shaping Hawaii's labor future, not just in theory, but in practice. I remember how excited and included I felt when those who were wordsmithing the generational commitment asked me, just an intern, what I thought and felt. I sat in meetings and watched real conversations and real work move forward. It's helped me understand what it takes to make Hawaii a place I can call home, not only in spirit, culture, and ancestry, but physically, literally. As a sociology major, I've always chosen to focus my research papers and projects on Native Hawaiian issues. The uniqueness of these islands, our history, diversity, and social complexity adds depth to every topic I study. But the data is often disheartening. The Native Hawaiian diaspora and drain brain, the disproportionate incarceration rates, education gaps, houselessness, health disparities, and more. These issues matter to me deeply as Kanaka working to uplift the Lahui. My most recent research project was about the Native Hawaiian diaspora using 2023 IPUMS census, USA census data. And while the results weren't technically statistically significant due to limited sample size, I'm also a stats minor, so I should say that. I did find a heartbreaking pattern. On average, Native Hawaiians living outside of Hawaii had nearly 3 times the income of those who remained in state after accounting for differences in cost of living by state. But this disparity isn't just a Hawaiian issue. Working with the WDC has helped me see that it's not only Native Hawaiians who struggle to stay and thrive here. It's anyone without significant economic privilege. And from my perspective, that kind of systemic inequality contradicts the very principles this country aims to uphold: justice, equity, and the general welfare of all people. In preparing for this speech, Bennett asked me a powerful question. When you imagine your life in 20 years, what kind of Hawaii do you want to live in? I tried to visualize it, and it was simple. In the morning, I'll drive my car from a house that I own. I drop my children off at school, a school with teachers I will trust and that teach them their intellectual worth and give them tools to succeed. I walk into a job in which I'm treated with respect, where my identity as Kanaka is not erased, where I am paid equally to the men who share my same responsibilities. I can buy groceries without anxiety, and maybe I run into a classmate from high school that managed to stay home too. I live comfortably, not excessively. I'm not just surviving, I am happy and I belong. Is this too much to ask for? Can this become a reality? I hope it can, and I will work to make it such, but I now know that I'm not alone in this work. All of you here are with me in this work. And through my studies of these various Native Hawaiian issues, I have decided and am determined to be one more Hawaiian in Hawaii, one more voice. I'm not here because I expect economic success, but because it's worth fighting for, even if the journey is hard. But observing the conversations and efforts with the Workforce Development Council has increased my hope for the financial success of my future. Lastly, I want to reference an olelo no oyao. I kanaka no oi ke malama I ke kanaka. You will be well served when you care for the person who serves you. To me, this echoes the idea that a rising tide lifts all ships. Workforce development, when rooted in aloha and malama pono, can uplift all people of Hawaii, present and future. So, for my life in 20 years, I hope to live in a Hawaii in which we truly take care of each other on a systemic, social, emotional, and cultural level. A Hawaii where we love and include each other, pursue meaningful and noble careers, and make intentional efforts to right the wrongs done in the past. And here I see these intentional efforts being made every day to raise the tide, to care for the people who care for us in the past, present, and future. And I'm so grateful to feel this aloha from each one of you today. I'm gathering here. He Hawaii au, maua mau, mahalo nui.
Wow, thank you, Angela. Amazing. Well, I guess I give credit to the father. He didn't do anything. Oh, such gratitude. We want to thank everyone for coming. We want to thank the many hands who helped put this together, to the Pillar Catalyst team leaders. Thank you for your leadership. Mahalo to our host, Dan Durger. I said his name again. Keala Peters and Matt Stevens, our core group, and of course our WDC team. Can you give them a big round of applause? Evan Palmer, Kelly Kitavis, and Angela Chalk for all their hard work. So we want to thank you for coming. And just one note, we want to turn it over to our fearless board chair, Ken Louie, to adjourn us. Go ahead.
Wow, what a day. I mean, forget what the quote is, and I probably butchered it, but you lived a full life if you lived, laughed, cried. So thank you, Tui. Thank you, Angela, for the crying part. Good cry. Dan for the entertainment and laughs. And I hope all of us for loving what we do and loving what we're about to do in this journey that we're on. So with that, I'd like to close the meeting. During the meeting, and our reminder that our next meeting for the WDC is August 20th at 9:30, 11:30. Public is also welcome. And there being no further business, the meeting is adjourned at 12:02. Thank you, everyone.
Whoever said janitor on the Mentimeter, go ahead and stay behind and vacuum.